KWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, October 18th. Good morning. I'm Pirishka Gopal-Kista. Right now in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's sunny and 6 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is speaking right now at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy occupation in February of this year. Here's a clip of Mayor Watson speaking about protesters entering the city.
We welcome protesters who are respectful of the law and respectful of our communities. The vast majority of these people in that kind of behavior were not being respectful, and I think we're hurting their cause, quite frankly. When you saw, the Shepherds of Good Hope, who does such good work in Lower Town in the Byward Market, having people bully their way in to get a free meal, that was just abhorrent.
Watson will continue to give long-awaited testimony on municipal efforts to handle the 3-week occupation of downtown Ottawa after his chief of staff and Ottawa's city manager appeared yesterday. Councillor Diane Deans, the former chair of Ottawa's Police Services Board, and Patricia Ferguson, acting deputy Ottawa Police Chief, also set to testify today. City News time 10:01. Now for a look at your weather. Here's City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The guaranteed high today, 10 degrees. We'll have increasing clouds, some showers. Just a chance, though. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 2. And tomorrow, start with some sun, get into cloud, periods of light rain, may even mix with some snow for some areas tomorrow. The high about 9 degrees.
Right now, in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's sunny and 6 degrees. Now, with the municipal election only 6 days away, City News reporter Chris Curries joins us with a recap from a mayoral debate that took place last night.
4 mayoral candidates went toe-to-toe, but largely stuck to their main talking points. Catherine McKenney that Mark Sutcliffe's financials don't work.
Mark's plan has between $35 to $80 million in cuts.
And Sutcliffe right back at McKenney on their $250 million bike lane plan.
That will cost us $200 million in interest payments over the coming years.
Election day is on Monday, and we will have special programming on City News 1011 from 7 to 10 with Rob Snow and Sam Laprade hosting. Chris Curries, City News.
One person was taken to hospital in critical condition with life-threatening injuries after 2 women were hit at King Edward and Somerset earlier this morning. This happened just after 5:30, and there are road closures in effect in that area. The other pedestrian was taken to hospital with serious injuries but in stable condition. Now, Ottawa police say there will be a closure for a prolonged period of time in that area. And contract talks continue today between the Ford government and a major education union. As our Alex Bloomfield reports, there may be some renewed urgency.
There is now a date for when the 55,000 members of the Ontario School Board Council of Unions will be in a legal strike position. The countdown is on to November 3rd, with mediated talks scheduled both today and tomorrow, but no indication the two sides are any closer to a deal. The union must give 5 days' notice of any job action it plans to take. It has not indicated its plans in terms of a work-to-rule campaign or rotating strikes or a full walkout. The union, which represents education assistants, custodians, administrative staff, and other workers across all public boards, has been pushing for an 11% annual raise due to recent wage freezes and high inflation. 3 years ago, the union struck a deal with the province a day before a strike deadline. Alex Bloomfield, City News.
And I'm Pirishka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Rogers TV and City News. We're happy to be spending this Tuesday with you. We are certainly keeping our eyes on the Emergency Act testimony taking place by Mayor Jim Watson today. Of course, we're watching that very closely. We know that that testimony is going to be very important in terms of this inquiry. So we're going to be going in and out of that throughout the day, so you'll want to lock it in here. Our Lunch with Sam guests today are David Thompson, former mayor of Deep River, and Claudette Kane, former mayor of Gloucester. We're going to be talking about the top 5 news stories of the day. and hope you'll stay with us for lunch. And of course, Ben Wise is going to join us from the Historical Society of Ottawa, talking about what is important right now in the history of Ottawa. We're also going to speak with Pat McGarry. He's a candidate for College Ward. As you know, that is a really interesting race. We're going to be following that one very closely. Pat's going to join us. We're also going to be joined today by Natalie Carrier, Executive Director for the Vanier BIA. Natalie has been in front of the Emergency Act inquiry. We're going to be speaking to her a little bit later. Joel Harden's going to join us as well, NDP MPP for Ottawa Centre. We know the Ontario NDP is calling on the Ford government to put $2.1 billion surplus into healthcare. So we're going to speak to Joel about that. We're also going to speak with Goldie Gamari, MPP for Carleton. The situation in Iran is absolutely dire. There was a march this past weekend. Goldie Gamari was there. We're going to speak to her a little bit later. We're also going to speak with a board member from the Snowsuit Fund. It is launching, a very important launch, of course, happening for families here in the Ottawa area, for kids to make sure that they have everything they need when the snow flies. Of course, those days are coming sooner than we'd like to think. Today is a big day in our city. It's the home opener for the Ottawa Senators, and we are very excited. We wanted to speak with Steve Warren today. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Sam. How are you?
Good. Steve Warren is the host of the Sens Nation podcast. How excited are you for this home opener, Steve?
Well, I think every Sens fan is probably very excited today. It's, there's a lot of neat things going on with this team, and just the fact that it's a sellout crowd. It's the first time in 5 years, according to Anthony LeBlanc, that's occurred. They have season ticket sales are up 60%. Not knowing exactly what the number was, it's hard to know how excited to get about that. It was said to be not a very big number, but it's just all positives across the board, Sam. They have such a neat-looking team, so many changes, and the vibe around the team is completely different than it was a year ago.
100%, Steve. I can't remember the last time I was excited about the Ottawa Senators in July, right? There were so many big announcements in July, and I couldn't wait for, today and the season to get started. And I think a lot of Sens fans are feeling the exact same way, especially with the announcement of Claude Giroux, of course.
Yeah, Claude Giroux, Alex DeBrincat, who's he's got 2 40-goal seasons in his history. Both tremendous players. Both were all-stars last season, as is Cam Talbot, who's expected to vie for the number 1 goaltending job. Right now he's injured. He's got a rib injury. But, yeah, across the board, they went out. I mean, they've got new decision-makers on this team, and they went out and committed to spending money to make the team better. And like I say, it's just one of the things, or one of the many things that's added a real brand new energy to the team. They've mended fences with their alumni, hiring some of them back. They've mended fences with the city and the NCC, so the downtown arena thing is on again. But for fans, though, the biggest thing is they have a fun, exciting team again, maybe the most skilled team in their 30-year history.
Oh, it's so exciting. And, when I think about the fact, obviously, we haven't had a win yet, but I'm hoping today we turn that around. What have you seen in the last couple of games, Steve, in terms of the way they're playing?
I love the way they're playing. They've had some glitchy moments that you can get depressed about, but, I mean, every team that allows a goal is going to have breakdowns in defensive zone coverage. Generally speaking, though, they're exciting to watch. They've created tons of opportunities to score in the first 2 games. They just haven't been able to finish. And, like DJ Smith said, if we keep playing like that, we're going to win our share of games. So I'm not at all discouraged. I know that it's hard not to treat this team as if they were part of the 5 years of missing the playoffs. Some of them were, but it's just such a brand new team, and everything is fresh and new. I think you have to look at it with a fresh pair of eyes as well. And so I think if you're a Sens fan, even though they're 0-2 out of the gate, and you're really worried about another bad start, the last 2 years have been tough. They've had terrible starts in the first month. But I think you still need to put all that aside and still go to the game tonight and be excited about the team as it lays right now, and what the potential for this team is for the coming season.
Very exciting. Let's talk a little bit about goaltending. Are you excited about what we have in the net this year?
Yeah, I think it's an upgrade on Matt Murray, who's now in Toronto and injured. Matt Murray was inconsistent and injury-prone in his 2 years here in Ottawa, and I thought Anton Forsberg did a pretty good job last year coming in and earning himself his first long-term contract in the NHL. Forsberg has not been the issue in the first 2 games. He's got a .925 save percentage, so he is he's off to a nice start, and I certainly love the addition of Cam Talbot. He was acquired from the Minnesota Wild. He was an NHL All-Star for the Wild last year, and then was dealt at the end of the season because they brought in Marc-Andre Fleury. So Talbot comes in, and I think it's going to be a good, healthy competition for the number 1 role. And should they get to the playoffs next spring, I think it's going to be the best man wins.
And I can't help but think as well about the plans, of course, for the downtown rink. And it just seems like there's a tipping point for the Senators. Would you agree, Steve?
Well, yeah, I mean, the downtown arena certainly, it's exciting. I think that with all the positives going on right now, that's just another one to add to things. I think there's probably one thing that, with all the improvements, it would not shock me if all these improvements are being done potentially to enhance things with a new owner. So you've got the arena on track, you've got the team on track. That certainly, if you're looking to sell, would make them more attractive to a potential buyer. But I have no idea. I've got no insight or insider knowledge on whether that's true or not. Eugene Melnyk and Pierre Dorion have been talking for 2 or 3 years that right around this time their plan was to spend near to the cap, and that's what's happening right now. So that may also be what's potentially happening here. But it's certainly exciting for Sens fans to know that arena is back on track and should happen someday.
It's very exciting. We'll certainly be watching tonight, Steve, and really appreciate you joining us here on City News and on Rogers TV. We're so excited about our new time slot here. So you're kicking us off today. We appreciate it.
Congrats, Sam. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Steve Warren joining us, host of the Sens Nation podcast. We appreciate his time. We have lots for you. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
At St. John Ambulance, we're all about community. We teach life-saving skills and provide community support through our volunteer services. All St. John Ambulance product sales and training registrations support these important services. Volunteer, donate, or enroll in a program today so we can continue to have an impact on our community. Visit sja.ca to learn more. At St. John Ambulance, we do more than save lives, we change lives.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Monday, October 24th is Municipal Election Day in Ontario, an important election to set the post-pandemic course for our community. Turn to Rogers TV for the local results, your comprehensive coverage as the votes are counted. Tune in to find out who's heading to Municipal Council. On election night, Rogers TV leads with local.
so much for spending time with us here on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. We're going to take you to the Public Order Emergency Commission. Mayor Jim Watson is testifying right now. We want to bring you that right now.
Can only suggest it may have been they wanted to have some capacity to go and try to mediate the safe removal of all of the trucks, but that would be something the chief would have to ask.
Right, so the chief asking you then to engage a professional mediator for that purpose, to try and de-escalate the situation with the protesters?
Yeah, again, I'm not sure the intent or why it was. I think it's under advocacy, but my understanding was that these were requests for our staff. The one request that was for myself to play was really bullet number one, to get those 1,800 resources.
And then if I can take you to OTT 20707.
And what date is that?
This is on February 7th. It's the next day after that email from the OPS with the requests. There's an email on February 7th, and it looks like, if we go down, it looks like Councillor Eagley is saying, Sarah, here's a quick and dirty draft. Jean is fine with the mayor seconding the motion. And then there is, this is a draft of a wording for a motion, and there's a lot of whereas, and then it says at the bottom, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor, supported by City Council, formally requests that the federal government appoint an independent mediator forthwith to assist in de-escalating the protest, as well as the orderly removal of the protesters and their vehicles from the City of Ottawa. So is this the response to the request from OPS to engage a professional mediator?
I don't believe so. I think it may have been done almost on a parallel basis. It was Councillor Egley that I believe drafted it, and the Jean is the Jean Cloutier, who was going to move it. I checked earlier this week because I saw this email. I hadn't seen it before, but it never went to City Council. It was a draft. And I know that at some point in that period, I had also suggested publicly, would there be a role for the federal government to appoint a distinguished Canadian who could go in and mediate and resolve this? The idea was not supported at all by the federal government. I referenced it, I believe, in a CTV interview. But I don't think the two were connected, even though the subject is the same. I think
we just wanted to step in there a little bit for the Public Order Emergency Commission. Mayor Jim Watson is testifying. You'll want to stay with us all day. We're following this very closely. We wanted to spend some time today with Lauren Parks, board member and organizer for the Snowsuit Fund. How are you, Lauren?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Sam.
Excellent. It's a very busy news day today, but we wanted to talk a little bit about this incredible initiative that happens every single year to make sure kids in our community stay nice and toasty warm in the winter.
That's right. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about the launch, Lauren.
So Snowsuit Fund, as I hope many people are familiar with in the Ottawa area, we're now in our 41st season. And, you know, we're here today to really talk about our Dinner Party in a Box event, which is happening on Saturday, November 26th this year.
Oh, that sounds great. So tell us all the details.
Great. So Dinner Party in a Box is something we actually started by necessity with COVID-19 over the past few years, but we are continuing due to popular demand. So annually it has been a sellout, and it is just as it sounds. So Dinner Party in a Box is a luxurious, chef-prepared, at-home dining experience, and it includes everything that you need for your own dinner party. So we have signature cocktails, premium wine and beer, as well as luxury gift items, and even some themed music playlists. So really everything you need to enjoy time with family, work colleagues, friends, however you choose to celebrate.
Well, that's my kind of dinner party, Lauren, because I'm not cooking. So that's fantastic. Really great there. Give us a sense, Lauren, of how many kids you're expecting this year to have to outfit because, of course, you know, everyone needs a great snowsuit, Lauren, heading into winter.
That's right. So the Snowsuit Fund purchases and distributes more than 16,000 snowsuits annually. We work with children 15 years and younger from low-income families in the Ottawa area. This year, too, I will say, due to the economic impact of COVID-19, skyrocketing inflation, we are seeing an increased demand this year.
Mm-hmm. And, there's lots of different ways people can help. This dinner party idea is definitely one. But if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, you know what, I just want to buy a snowsuit this year, how would they do that? What's the best way to go about that, Lauren?
The most direct way is with cash donations. So you can make donations through our website at snowsuitfund.com. But there's lots of ways to get involved this year. So, there are some volunteer opportunities. You can reach out to us in that way. There's Dinner Party in a Box, of course. And we have a few other events coming up this season, including our Snowball Gala in February. So cash donations always appreciated.
Well, that's great, Lauren. I know how hard all of you work. I really appreciate you spending time with us today and spreading the good news. We'll make sure all of those kids are nice and toasty this winter. Lauren Parks joining us, board member and organizer for the Snowsuit Fund. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate your time. We know we're keeping our eye very closely on the Public Order Emergency Commission, which is happening right now. Mayor Jim Watson is testifying today. We're going to be keeping you up to date on that. You'll want to lock it in here to Rogers TV and City News. We wanted to spend some time today at Algonquin College. We're heading to chat with Jeff Turner. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning, Sam. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So you've got a big job at Algonquin College. Remind me what your title is, Jeff.
Can I just jump in quickly, though, first? I want to congratulate you on your Alumni of Distinction Award presented to you from Algonquin College.
You're very sweet.
A couple of weeks ago. It's very well-deserved recognition.
Thank you so much. You made my day. Thank you, Jeff.
So I'm the Senior Manager, Indigenous Partnerships and Special Projects here at Algonquin. I work in the Office of Truth, Reconciliation, and Indigenization.
Wow, you've certainly got a big job. And I know you're an alum as well and really connected to the college. You're doing something really interesting with the Indigenous Youth Development Canada. Talk a little bit about this project.
Oh, I'd love to. So it started back in September of 2019 and went all through the COVID time. And it was really, the genesis of it was a pilot fund that we received from Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, and to start a program that supported Indigenous youth in trades, education upgrade, and trades training on their reserves. And we set out initially with four partners, two training centers and two post-secondary institutions. And we've grown that to 8 partners in 4 provinces and a new one coming on in another month we expect to be able to announce. And the purpose and point of it is to give NEET youth, they're not employed or in education or training, an opportunity for education upgrades, trades training, and employment. Mm-hmm. And it's going remarkably well.
That's fantastic, Jeff. And let me ask you what the impact to the youth is.
Well, it's amazing because these kids really had nothing in their communities. And we're talking in some areas, Sam, where the unemployment rate can be as high as 80%.
Wow.
And the beauty of this project is that the program really is that everything happens on reserve. So we're breaking the traditional circumstances where youth had to travel somewhere to improve and to get a better education or trades training. So we're bringing it to them with our Now, our partners deliver the programs. We work with them. We cultivate the partnerships and the statements of work and budgets, and they deliver on site in a partnership with us. But to your point about the impact, by the end of August of 23, we'll have touched close to 700 youth with this program.
Wow.
And on a rolling average, 70% of them or so are still gainfully employed.
That's
so we're even impacting the GDP of some of these communities because we have kids that are going to work now where they weren't before. And it's changing the climate and the environment in some of these reserves. It's just amazing.
It really is amazing. I really appreciate you sharing today, and let's stay in touch, Jeff, and really follow some of these stories. I'd love to have one of the youth join us as well.
Great idea. I was going to suggest that because I've traveled to all of the locations where we have partners, and I make a point of meeting the youth in the programs. And there's two I'll tell you about next time from down east, from the Maui Tribal Council in New Brunswick, that were heavily addicted to drugs that are now becoming apprentices.
Wow.
It's just astounding.
Wow, love that. Thank you so much for your time always.
Thank you, Sam. Take care. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Jeff Turner joining us from Algonquin College, speaking about that important project, Indigenous Youth Development Canada. We wanted to bring you back to the Public Order Emergency Commission. Mayor Jim Watson is testifying. We're going to step in here for a couple of minutes. Stay with us.
Do it all on our own. We needed help, and we needed the help of the other two orders of government.
So if I can take you now to OTT 6057. And this is another letter dated February 7th, and this is now directed to the Prime Minister and to Minister Mendicino. Is that right?
Yes.
And it's essentially the same letter.
That's correct.
Okay. And now I understand that discussions with the Prime Minister and with Minister Mendicino were ongoing. The 7th is the same day as there was a first tripartite ministerial meeting. On the 8th there was as well, and on the 10th. So did you receive a formal response to this letter from the Prime Minister or Minister Mendicino?
I'd have to go back and look in files. Often these letters go out, they're publicly made, and do you necessarily get a response?
Yep.
What we were looking for is not a nice typewritten response. We wanted action. And we believe that, or I certainly believe, that this letter acted to break the logjam, to put in writing for the first time our specific requests that we needed help.
Now, the Solicitor General did respond to your letter on February 8th. On February 10th. Is that right?
I recall her sending, I think, a 2-page letter to, I believe it was both Councillor Deans and myself.
Okay. If I can take you to ONT 851. And this is the response.
And we're just listening to the testimony of Mayor Jim Watson at the Public Order Emergency Commission. We're going to be staying with this all day. You'll want to lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Putting the focus on smaller businesses and less larger sized businesses, as it's very different for people like me that are literal small business owners, where we've bootstrapped money and we don't have a lot of funding, and to be able to help us through that. There has been some help for us, but I think it would be a greater opportunity to see us thrive through the next couple of years.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 18th. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, it's sunny and 8 degrees, and in Smiths Falls, it's 6. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is speaking right now on what is day 4 of the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Watson is giving long-awaited testimony on municipal efforts to handle the 3-week occupation of downtown Ottawa. Councillor Diane Deans, the former chair of Ottawa's Police Services Board, Patricia Ferguson, acting deputy Ottawa Police Chief, and a few other Ontario provincial police officials set to give testimony today. One of the candidates for Ottawa mayor says proper planning is needed before the city moves ahead with Lansdowne 2.0 project. Bob Shirelli, one of the 14 candidates running for mayor, says while the area is important to Ottawa, it has to be developed with energy efficiency and spatial residential units in mind. He says that cost needs to be part of the budget process as well as public consultation before the plan goes ahead. And Ottawa Police is looking for your help to identify a suspect who was involved in an armed robbery in the Nepean area back in August. It took place at a business on the 1400 block of Highgate Road near Iris Street. Police say the suspect entered the store around midnight, ordered cigarettes, and when he was asked to pay, he brandished a knife. He then fled on foot with the stolen cigarettes. Police described the suspect as white, 6 foot, approximately 25 to 30 years old. He was last seen wearing a grey t-shirt with black shorts and with a white logo and black shoes. Anyone who has information is asked to contact the police robbery unit or submit a tip anonymously to Crime Stoppers. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on Rogers TV. We appreciate you tuning in, of course, and on City News. We have a very big show for you today. Lots of great guests. You'll want to stay with us. We wanted to spend some time today speaking about what's happening in Iran. We know Masha Amini's death has sparked so much tragedy, so much violence. We wanted to spend some time today with Goldie Gamari. Hi, Goldie.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. Goldie Gamari, of course, MPP for Carleton. The situation in Iran, it just is tragic, Goldie. I know there was a march here in Ottawa and you were part of it. What did it feel like to get together and be part of this very important march here in Ottawa?
Well, Sam, for those who might not be aware, I was born in Iran. I'm Iranian Canadian. My parents immigrated to Canada when I was a year old because they wanted to raise their daughters in a free and democratic society. And, I'm so blessed and I'm so proud to be Canadian. But the reality is that if I was in Iran, I would not have had the same opportunities as I do here. And what happened with Mahsa Amini, the brutal murder of this 22-year-old woman, by the Islamic regime's morality police just because she wasn't wearing her compulsory hijab properly. It's kind of like the spark that fueled the fire under the people of Iran, and not just for people living in Iran, but the entire Iranian diaspora around the world. And so, attending this rally, it was really important because it allowed all of us, not just Iranian Canadians, but Canadians who are not Iranian, but who also support human rights and freedom and democracy in Iran, to gather and to be a voice for the people of Iran.
And I think truly, Goldie, that, as Canadians, I'll speak for myself as a Canadian woman, it's really hard to comprehend how someone is beaten and ultimately dies because of something like this. I mean, it just seems beyond uncomprehensible that something like this would happen to somebody. But the reality is this isn't the first time, and sadly, it isn't the last time. And we know that hundreds of people have lost their lives, Goldie.
Thousands. I would even dare to say hundreds of thousands of people over the past 43 years have lost their lives. I would say the easiest way to comprehend what's happening in Iran right now, for those who have no familiarity with Iran, is The Handmaid's Tale. In fact, Margaret Atwood said that The Handmaid's Tale was partly inspired by the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran and their treatment of the Iranian people and Iranian women. So I think as a starting point, that kind of gives a little bit of a sense of what life is like in Iran. And with the advent of social media, Iranians have now been able to share their horrific reality with the world. And the images that we are seeing coming out of Iran right now, we have not seen in 43 years. Young women are risking their lives simply by taking off their hijab and burning it. Young women and young men are being murdered on the streets just because they're protesting. Sharif University, which is the equivalent of Harvard or MIT in Iran, it was surrounded, and the best and brightest university students were massacred. Just a few days ago, there's an infamous prison in the capital of Iran called Evin Prison, and it's known to house all of Iran's political prisoners. And again, these are not criminals. These are artists, athletes, journalists, human rights advocates, lawyers. The best and brightest minds are in this political prison. That was set on fire a few days ago. And, the official report from the Islamic regime is that there were 40 victims, but we all know that they're lying. We're thinking it's in the hundreds of people that were massacred. And, people are calling it the Evin prison massacre because the Islamic regime massacred innocent political prisoners.
Goldie, has Canada done enough?
So I think the steps that have been taken so far are a good start. But what I'm hearing from Iranians when they reach out to me, when they find out that I'm a politician, what they're telling me is that it's not enough and more needs to be done. The reality is that the Islamic regime in Iran, the IRGC, controls the vast amount of in Iran. And if the IRGC is listed as a terrorist entity, that would zero in on the nexus between terrorism and business. And it would allow a means to disrupt the financial support network for terrorist activity. Because Iran is one of the largest state sponsors of terror in the world. Not only do they terrorize their own innocent people, but they terrorize people around the world. I mean, look at what they did back in January of 2020 when they shot down Ukraine flight PS752 for days.
Yes.
They denied it, and they actually blamed Canada and the United States for the plane crash. And it was only after social media evidence came out of Iran with videos showing the plane being shot down by two missiles that the Islamic regime finally admitted that they shot down the plane. And even now, families are still seeking justice, and they still don't have a clear understanding of why this happened.
Goldie, is it hard to see, young women like yourself, on TV experiencing this, protesting? Is it hard to see those visuals? It is certainly for me, but I'd love your perspective, of course.
It's devastating. It's devastating. It's not just hard for me. It's hard for all Iranian women, and it's hard for Iranian men as well, because when we see these images and videos, I might not have known Mahsa Amini personally, but she was my sister. She was my cousin. She was, someone's daughter. And we all take this personally because that could have been any one of us. And, the most recent example is a rock climbing athlete named Elnaz Rikabi, and she was part of the national team in Iran, rock climbing in Seoul in South Korea, and she chose to do so without her hijab. She took off her headscarf, which is huge. You're not supposed to do that. And after she did that, reports came in that she went missing and her cell phone and passport were confiscated. And now the news has come out that she is on her way back to Iran, and there is an Instagram story that was there's a story that was posted on her Instagram page where it's just some text, and it says, I took off my hijab unintentionally. I didn't mean to. It fell off. Even though we all know that that's not the case, that she was making a statement, but the Islamic regime is forcing her to make this statement. And now Iranian media is saying that she was forced to make this statement because back in Iran, the Islamic regime kidnapped her brother and held him hostage. And now everyone in Iran and around the world are worried for her safety. And she's just another of the hundreds of thousands of victims of the Islamic regime in Iran.
Goldie, I'm so sorry. This is a really hard topic, and you've been very gracious to spend time. I know it's emotional, and, we're going to keep on top of this and keep this top of mind. As you know, the news world is very busy, and what happens is, stories just get pushed back on the pages of the paper and pushed down the line. And I don't want to see that happen with this story. So, we'll continue to follow this very closely here on City News.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very, very much. I think ultimately, if we can continue to be a strong voice for the people of Iran, they will be successful in their fight for freedom and democracy. And, a free and democratic Iran is not just good for Iran, but it's good for everyone in the world as well.
Very well said.
Thank
Goldie
you very
Gamari
much.
joining us, MPP for Carleton. Appreciate her time today. So definitely a very, very devastating time for Iranian women and, as Goldie mentioned, Iranian men as well. We wanted to spend some time today. We're going to take a minute here and zip into the Public Order Emergency Commission. Mayor Jim Watson is testifying. We're going to go there for a couple of minutes now.
After Windsor, they recognize the next big problem is Ottawa, and they better, get there as soon as possible, because this thing was close to swirling out of control. And what we were seeing was every weekend, people were treating this like it was some sort of a rave or a party or something, and arriving, and there were DJs and loud sound systems and racist flags and desecration of our national war monument. And I think, I can't give you the exact date, but eventually the OPP came on board. Eventually we got the RCMP. But as I said, this thing frustrated me because, the public were saying, well, why don't you tell the police to do this? And as we all know, or most people know, in our society, a politician cannot, by law, direct a police service on operational matters. So we have to work at the political level to do whatever we can to get some resolution to a situation that was extremely hurtful to thousands of people.
So if I can take you now to another document, SSMNSC.CAN 2052. And I believe this is a readout of the second tripartite meeting. And it looks like the participants on the first page are Minister Mendicino, Minister Blair, you, if we go down a little bit, yeah. And it looks like Chief Slowly was in attendance. Do you recall him attending one of the tripartite meetings?
Yes.
Okay. So then on the first page, you say, why no Solgen in attendance? I suppose that's Minister Jones.
Sorry, okay, I see that, yep.
Yep, and then Minister Mendicino says no word back. So at this point, you had expected that Ontario would have been at this table, is that right?
Yes, I don't know the sequence of dates as to whether, because I did have that conversation with the Premier where he rejected the idea, but I know that the federal ministers were also trying to get the Solicitor General to engage on the tripartite table, which she declined.
Well, this may assist because then you say, I'm speaking to Premier tomorrow.
We were stepping in there to the commission happening right now on the Emergencies Act. Mayor Jim Watson, of course, spending time today testifying. We know lots of different people are going to be testifying. We're on our fourth day. We're following this story very closely on Rogers TV and City News. You want to lock it in. Stay with us, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Your mouth can do a lot of amazing things. And your mouth can save a life.
Hi, I'm Tom Wong. I'm just one of close to 1,000 Canadians in search of a stem cell match. We need your help.
A simple swab is all you need to register on the National Stem Cell Database. You could be the one to save a life. Find the hero in you.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, local singer, songwriter, and actress Steph La Rochelle joining us on the show. Her brand new album, and it's her debut album, is being released at the end of the week. She'll drop by and tell us about all the new songs. We'll also talk to a business that specializes in accessible renovations, and we'll introduce you to a Canadian dating app that is designed for people living with disabilities. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, although Health Minister Sylvia Jones doesn't think there's a crisis in this city, many healthcare professionals do. And of course, across the province, we're seeing a number of emergency rooms closed. You know, we saw that throughout the summer, closed for 3 or 4 nights. We've seen it in the last couple of weeks as well. Glengarry Hospital had to close. I know Queens by Carleton Hospital was at capacity or over capacity. A number of hospitals in this province have definitely experienced that. We know the Mall 4 did in the summertime as well. And I've spoken a number of times with Joel Harden, NDP MPP for Ottawa Centre, about the challenges. We're speaking with Joel now. Hi, Joel.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. Joel, let me just ask you flat out, is this a healthcare crisis in the province of Ontario?
Absolutely. I mean, Sam, let's just look at the evidence that matters the most. The report that came out chillingly this year, is that between 2021 to 2022, just over 1,400 Ontarians died waiting for their operation. So that should just stop us cold, that people are waiting for medically essential services and procedures, and they died while waiting for the operation. And all the stuff you've reported on in the past is also well known, that healthcare staff are completely exhausted. Many of them haven't had a significant break in months. Mm-hmm. So we have a healthcare staffing crisis. And the way we're not going to solve that crisis, Sam, is by allowing private for-profit clinics, which is what the government is proposing, to pick up the slack, because that's just frankly about lining the pockets of people who are close to the government and making sure that very, very affluent people can afford healthcare when, I thought a Canadian value is that everybody should be able to get the healthcare they need.
Joel, I have to tell you, I can't imagine being a nurse or a PSW or a physician, anybody working in healthcare, knowing that the province had a $2 billion surplus, but Bill 124 hasn't been repealed yet.
Yeah, well, no, this is exactly the thing that is frustrating people, is that it's frustrating people that we're having a situation in which the government is sitting on $2 billion in surplus, Sam. They had reported there were going to be $13 billion in deficit, and yet we still have a freeze on wages. But Sam, that freeze does not apply to government members of provincial parliament. I learned back in July, sorry, that's our doorbell. I'm going to help that constituent in a moment after our conversation. We learned that over 40 members of provincial parliament in the Doug Ford government got a $16,000 pay increase by being made parliamentary assistants, the most amount of parliamentary assistance in Ontario history. So that's a 10% bump for them, $16,000 a year, while our healthcare staff are absolutely exhausted and desperately in need of raise. And as you say, we have the money to pay them. So we should scrap Bill 124. And we should not go down the road of privatization, which is what the Premier and the Health Minister are proposing.
Well, and I think, and we've spoken about this before, Premier Ford, certainly during the election and elected, of course, June 2nd, you heard him many times, we're for the workers, right? Well, if you're for the workers, there's no worker that's working harder right now than healthcare workers.
I'm married to one, Sam. I would agree. Right. The fact of the matter is, I always want to believe that people have good intentions in politics, even if we disagree on the solution. But I think the evidence around private healthcare is very, very clear. Anywhere it's being worked in the world, we can only look south of the border to see what private healthcare does to a society like the United States. It makes sure people who can have the money can pay for it. And I was given a report last night, Sam. Our conversation, the timing was great because I was talking to the Ottawa Health Coalition last night, which brings together healthcare professionals, healthcare advocates. And they told me about a clinic that's existed for about 14 years as part of the Brook Street Hotel, well in the west end of our city, that offers fantastic health care. La Vie Executive Health, it's called. And I understand this government wants to pursue more partnerships with them. For $5,000, you can get checkups. If you're affluent enough to pay for things, you can get elective surgeries. But this is about queue jumping, and it's going to drain healthcare staff from our existing public system, which is beleaguered. So I don't think that's the Canada I want. I don't want a Canada where people have to pay for the essential medical services they need, that they die while waiting for surgery. I want a healthcare system where people are paid properly for the great work they do for us, and people can get the health care they need when they need it.
But Joel, when asked, Premier Ford and Minister Jones says, no, we're not going this way in terms of health care. Why do we think we're getting that kind of response from the Premier?
Well, the Premier's got, every politician is deaf to communication, Sam. I tried my best to be straight with mine, but the Premier is doing a sleight of hand here. What's happening is the Premier and the healthcare minister are saying, well, you're still going to play with your OHIP card if you go to a private clinic, so you're not going to pay a dime. That's not accurate. What we know is that these private clinics will always upsell. There will be something that will be covered by OHIP, but there may be, your basic cataract surgery may be covered by a private ophthalmologist. But I got my eyes checked the other day, Sam, because I'm 50, and I was told by my ophthalmologist that, Joel, if you wanted to opt for an elective surgery for $8,500 to $9,000, Sam, that's what I was told, you could get your flattened retinas fixed at a private clinic. Well, I told the gentleman, frankly, that's not something I think we should be doing as a country. I think everybody who needs their eyes fixed, their eyesight to work, to drive safely, to get around the community, to do what they need to do, that should be available to everyone. But the Premier is, in my view, misleading people by suggesting they're not going to pay more. We are going to pay more. There's going to be upselling. There's going to be staff drained from our public system into private systems. And what we should be doing is taking our surplus and putting it into our public system that works really hard for us.
Mm-hmm. If you would have said to me in 2019, Joel, of course, before the pandemic, that emergency rooms in this province would close for long weekends or for weekends due to staff shortages, I would have said, well, no, there's no way the province would let that happen. And look at where we are today with it happening not only once or twice, but regularly, pretty much, every weekend weekend since, I think, July. There's been some hospital that's been closed within the region. And that's not even counting, places like Niagara and Toronto and the GTA and all of that. So what is it going to take? Because I would have thought emergency room closures would have been a wake-up call. What's the wake-up call needed for the Ford government?
Well, the wake-up call Ford government needs, Sam, quite clearly, to all the listeners who are hearing my words right now, they need you to speak up and share your stories with your members of provincial parliament. If you live in Ottawa Centre, please do that with me. So we can bring these stories to the legislature. And if we have to mobilize in rallies, in various ways in which to get the Ford government's attention, or maybe, Sam, what we should be doing is targeting the private for-profit clinics, friends of the Ford government, who are going to be making a huge profit out of the way in which the Premier is currently running the province. We're gonna use all tools that we have at our disposal because only 18% of Ontarians elected this government. We have huge voter fatigue and anger out there, and the way we can fix politics is by throwing some cold water across all of our faces, quite frankly. So if you're waiting for a surgery, if you're burnt out as a healthcare worker, if you're afraid at the privatization direction of the Ford government, I don't care who you vote for. I want you to reach out to me. I would be happy to work with you, bring your story to the legislature, Sam. That's how we can push and get things done.
Joel, I appreciate it very much. Just while I have you, of course, we've got the Emergency Act testimony happening right now by Mayor Jim Watson. Over the last 4 days, we've heard testimony from, Steve Kanellakis and Zexi Lee and a number of people. Are you watching this closely, Joel?
Oh, of course, Sam. This was easily the weirdest and most stressful time in my own life. And to be a politician in that moment was to be connected to thousands and thousands of people in our city who were really suffering. And as I said on your show in the past, and I'll say it again, we have a lot of healing and repairing to do between Canadians who feel differently about COVID policies. We were on the end of 2 years of significant suffering, loss of life, loss of livelihoods. And, we had 500 vehicles parked in our street because some people felt they needed to do that to get the federal government's attention, to get our attention or whatever. I want to continue to send a message to Convoy supporters that we need to talk to each other as Canadians. And we have to figure out ways to resolve our anger around issues without subjecting each other to the kind of treatment I saw in our city last February. But I tip my hat to the great people of Ottawa who came together, whether it was the Billings Bridge peaceful blockade or the lawsuit led by Zexi Lee, Paul Champ, and Emily Taman. We found ways to get through that moment. But I've seen politics get worse and worse and radicalized all over the world, Sam, and our country is too good for that. Like, we have to find a way to talk these issues through before we get into another situation like that. I don't mind passion in politics, but when we stop seeing each other as human beings, that's a red flag. So I really hope the mayor, I really hope this federal process contributes to that healing and not name calling, because that's not going to help us.
Certainly, it's been a shock to me at how disconnected everybody is, and it just seems every day to get worse and worse. We're going to be following it very closely, as you can imagine. Joel here on City News. Joel Harden joining us, NDP MPP for Ottawa Centre. Always appreciate your time.
Same here, Sam. Be well. Take care.
Thank you so much. We're going to be stopped for news here. You'll want to stay with us on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. That was a lot. I think I need a nap. On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Hi, I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
Good morning, it's Tuesday, October 18th. I'm Perishka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 8 degrees, and in Smiths Falls, it's 6 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Mayor Jim Watson has taken the stand in day 4 of the public inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy. Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney joins us with the details.
As the convoy protest was approaching Ottawa, Mayor Jim Watson says there wasn't an accurate picture of just how many protesters would be descending on the Capitol or how long they would stay. He says the police chief told him the protesters would be gone after a couple of days. On the email from the Hotel Association, though, that warned of the complete plan from organizers and the request for around 10,000 hotel rooms, he says it wasn't taken as serious because there was no follow-up from the organizers. Watson also doesn't recall any discussions about contingency plans if protesters hung around, and says heading into the second weekend there were no discussions about blocking more trucks from arriving in the city.
Well, I think there was concern, absolutely, because when you saw hundreds and then it turned out to thousands of people arriving with different pickups and 18-wheelers and so on, that this was going to be bigger than any of us had imagined.
Okay, but there wasn't a discussion to try and prevent that from happening.
Not in my presence, to the best of my recollection.
Right. He's also now testifying about conversations he had with the Prime Minister and the provincial government looking for more resources. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News time 11:02, and taking a look at your weather for today, here's City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The guaranteed high today, 10 degrees. We'll have increasing clouds, some showers. Just a chance, though. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 2, and tomorrow, start with some sun, get into cloud, periods of light rain, may even mix with some snow for some areas tomorrow. The high about 9 degrees. Thursday, showers in 8. For today, the guaranteed high, 10.
Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 8 degrees. And in Smiths Falls, it's 6. One mayoral candidate, Mark Sutcliffe, is promising to stand up for Ottawa's rural communities if elected. At a mayoral debate yesterday, Sutcliffe said he isn't the type of leader who would bring a one-size-fits-all approach to the table, as it would only leave rural residents feeling overlooked. He says the needs of residents downtown, the suburbs, and rural Ottawa all differ. Now, he also plans on bringing more doctors to Ottawa and aims to keep taxes low. There are 14 candidates running for Ottawa's next mayor, and the municipal election is next Monday. As Canadians struggle with inflation, the Loblaw's price freeze on their no-name items is being called into question. City's Sonia Aslam reports another big grocer appears to be calling them out on this one.
We're talking about Metro. They are the third largest grocer in the country behind Loblaw and Sobeys, and they sent a statement to Bloomberg saying this is industry practice and it's common to have a price freeze from about November 1st to February 5th. I asked Loblaw and they say that's not true, adding they've never done this before and freezing prices on items like produce, eggs, bread and flour for the next 3 months is unprecedented in this country. They go on to guarantee these items won't see a price increase. Now, the other aspect of this move being called into question is how much money Loblaws is making right now. In the second quarter of this year, they made $387 million. That's an increase of $12 million compared to the same time last year. So why is Loblaw doing this now? They tell me they wanted to do something for people as we head into the biggest buying period of the year. But keep in mind, tomorrow morning, Stats Canada is going to release its latest inflation report. In August, the rate eased for a second month, but food costs grew to a pace we have not seen seen since the 80s. This also comes not long after Ottawa said it was going to investigate whether grocery chains in this country are overcharging people and keeping the extra profits for themselves. Sonia Aslam, City News.
And I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, as we know, we're in our fourth day of the Emergencies Act testimony, and Mayor Jim Watson is testifying today. We're keeping our eye very closely on this. And if you are wondering where my colleague Rob Snow is, Rob is now going to be joining you every day between 6 and 9 a.m., which is fantastic. It's Wake Up with Rob Snow. And from 9 to 10, my colleague, host, producer David Smith joins you for the Talk Back Hour. And I'll be with you every weekday from 10 to 1. We look forward to spending this time with you. We want to spend some time today with Natalie Carrier. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Sam.
Natalie, as you know, obviously is Executive Director of the Vanier BIA. This has been a very interesting couple of days, we'll say that, in terms of the testimony. I know you were part of the inquiry. What are your thoughts so far, Natalie, on what you're hearing?
Well, I think what we've seen is the inquiry is trying to set the tone of what it was like actually in Ottawa. Let's be honest, Ottawa was sort of forgotten during this whole thing. The residents and the businesses were suffering tremendously, but I don't think that people across the country and even in our own city, I think, realized how bad it was in the downtown core. And I also think that, what we tried to convey on Friday was the fact that it also wasn't just that traditional sort of protest that you see downtown that sort of affects the Byward Market and the Parliament buildings, but that it was actually something that stretched, 9 kilometers from Vanier to Westboro, where there was serious disruption, serious lockdowns, serious impacts on both businesses and residents, and that it lasted, for weeks on end without any resolution and any sign of gaining momentum until, of course, that last weekend.
Are you feeling that the Vanier area, the Vanier BIA members are still recovering from that time?
Absolutely we are. I mean, long after the protest, there was an organization in our community that supported a lot of the people that occupied our city, and that was, very difficult for a lot of residents. I think we have, we're the most diverse BIA in the city, and so I said this on the stand, and I'll say it here, that I think that people that are racialized or equity deserving were disproportionately affected by this. I think, to see a swastika walking on the streets, to see people, with FLQ, flags and that kind of hate rhetoric that we've seen throughout history was very unsettling. We saw people singing Yabba Dabba Doo with sacred Indigenous drums, and presenting peace pipes to each other as though these articles were, presents that you bought at Party City. So, I mean, the effects of that, I think, will be felt by our city for a long time. And if I can speak on behalf of my colleagues and other BIAs, I used the example on the stand the other day where, friends of mine had this perfect staycation day, and they'd gone for this long bike ride into a museum, and they decided to have dinner in the market, and they were sitting there reveling about how great it was, and then all of a sudden a gang of Yahoo starts screaming "Ask Trudeau" and all these kinds of nasty, awful things, which kind of ruined the day. And so Ottawa is still feeling the effects of that. The residents are, as are the businesses. And regardless of what your personal choice is, I think at some point you have to protest and then let the city move on, so that it's just been challenging.
And it's so interesting, Natalie, because, everybody has a perspective on that time. But I think, to your point, if you were in the downtown core, we hear about people, smelling diesel and the obviously the honking and all of that, just really played on people's minds and their quality of life and all of that. Are you surprised? I mean, this is something that I'm saying, and I'd love your perspective on it. Are you surprised at the lack of coordination between the different levels of government and the different organizations, including police? Did that come as a surprise to you? Because certainly for me, I would have thought that they were all working together.
Well, I think it exposed our underbelly, didn't it? It was, I think that when it comes to natural disasters, we're very well coordinated and prepared, and there's hierarchies that are in place. I think the city, and certainly a city, let's be honest, we have to say this because the city belongs to itself, yes, but it also belongs to the National Capital Commission. It also belongs to the parliamentary precinct. And so you have different stakeholders that are all around. And so it's not really that simple. It's not as simple as saying, well, in the city of Toronto, we have sovereignty, because we don't actually have sovereignty on all of our spaces here in Ottawa. And so it definitely exposed that very specific thing that you described. It caused chaos. And I think for us, what we were trying to convey is the level of preparedness that we normally have for a Canada Day was not there for this, despite the fact, and we're hearing it now, that they knew that there was, hotel rooms that were trying to be booked. They knew the size of the train of, what is it they were telling us, 70 kilometer long train of trucks heading towards Ottawa. We knew all of this, and yet we still let the trucks in. We still allowed protesters to have access to things that most festivals, events, or citizens would not normally have access to do. And then we turned a blind eye. I think what we're hearing is we turned a blind eye because it was the safest thing to do, ironically, to turn a blind eye to certain things because safety was primary to so many people, and certainly to the police. I mean, in the daily briefings that I sat in, we heard a lot of pointing to things that were very nefarious that were happening. And I think that we'll probably hear about that in the coming days. There was serious concern about, these trucks themselves being vehicles and also weapons that could drive into people, that could prevent police from taking action. We were told things could have been snuck in on the trucks, that they weren't inspected. And so there was this sense of fear that existed that I think people really can't understand unless you were there. And to your point about the horns, I think unless you actually heard them, you will not ever have a frame of reference for it, unless you live by a train track and you hear the train horns. But imagine those train horns all day, every day, from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. for weeks on end. It cannot be described, but I think they did a really good job on Friday with Zexi Lee describing that.
And Natalie, of course, I've watched parts of everybody's testimony. I haven't been following it, every single minute, obviously, because I've got to be on the radio.
Because we have jobs to
exactly.
do the same, right? Exactly. But Ottawa has moved on.
Exactly. But I do think the moment that really resonated with me was the moment, and it was like 2 seconds before I went on air, that we received something from Ottawa Police Service and Children's Aid indicating there was over 100, I believe it was about 120 children on site as well. And that really struck me, right? That there was children involved, that there was 120 kids down there. I mean, this is when kids should be in school. I mean, as a mom, and then it just really bothered me. And then, of course, on the day that it all sort of was starting to conclude, we saw children there. That part, I think, for me, will always be a big part of this story as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And certainly we knew that internally a little bit all along, right? We could see them there on the news. Certainly if you're watching social media, you would see children. And though I understand parents have the right to teach their kids what they deem to be right and wrong and to stand up for their rights, there was a certain level at which that added to the complexity of everything else, right? So you have this truck that may be peaceful but could also turn, ram people. I mean, when we do events, we have to do what's called hardening of barriers so that a truck can't barrel into a crowd of people and kill people, as was done in Toronto, as was done in Barcelona. So there's these standards that exist. So these trucks are weapons, and in and amongst them are normal revelers, and then, normal protesters, and then perhaps nefarious protesters that actually came here with the intention to overthrow the government and possibly be violent. And then inside of all of that is women and children and families, and it becomes a very complex issue. I'm very glad that I didn't have to be the one making those decisions at the high level, but I'm also, as a citizen and certainly as a representative of businesses, looking forward to getting some of those answers. Why did we let this happen in the first place? How come Toronto and Quebec City didn't let their trucks in, and they somehow weren't bound by the same charter of rights that we were told couldn't prevent these trucks from coming in. So I want to get down to the bottom of the story, and I want to make sure this never happens again. Ottawa should never have to face this. No city in Canada should ever have to face this. And the complexity will be revealing.
Absolutely, Natalie. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for your candor today as well.
Thanks, Sam.
Natalie Carrier joining us, Executive Director for the Vanier BIA. We're obviously watching the Emergency Act testimony by Mayor Jim Watson very, very closely. When we come back, we're going to meet Teresa Bailey and Terry Marcotte. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
With clubs, leagues, and courts in every province and territory across Canada, squash is the sport for wall-to-wall fun, fitness, and friendship. From coast to coast to coast. Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will endeavor to describe the feeling on this ship. The American ship is just trailing the Blue Nose.
Angus should never have agreed to this last race. She's too old.
Eddie!
Johnson, halyard back! Get to it, man!
Appears there's some kind of difficulty. Seems to be something loose up there, I believe. Our topsail's foul! Can't see a man!
Just once more, little girl. And you can rest.
Her last race and still undefeated. The Blue Nose out of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia was fastest in the world for almost 20 years.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Yeah, I need a ride.
A message from MadCan.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I have to tell you, I've been waiting for this book for a very long time. And the book is Hockey Moms. The authors, Teresa Bailey and Terry Marcotte, join me now. Hi to you two.
Hi, Sam.
Hi there. Great to connect. Teresa Bailey, tell me all about this book. Why did you write Hockey Moms?
Well, it started about 13 years ago when my oldest son, who happens to turn 20 today, was getting into competitive hockey, and there was a lot of really strange things going on that I had experienced when growing up in a hockey family. The same issues were still around, and there were no communities, there was no help for parents or specifically moms at that point. And so I developed the community of Hockey Moms, and I always felt like there was, I always wanted to write a book about moms' experiences and had tried to make a go at it. And it was only really when Terry offered to help coming up to the pandemic that we were able to get things rolling.
Well, it's amazing. And of course, sports legend broadcaster Terry Marcotte is here too. Terry, when Teresa came to you with this idea, what were your first thoughts?
First off, I like being called a legend, but I'm not really, but that's pretty kind of you. Teresa and I, we connected years ago when I did a story and stayed in touch, and she said to me many times, there's a book here. And I thought, of course there's a book. It's a brilliant idea because we don't hear from women in hockey. We don't hear from mothers. It's always about the dads. When the kid scores the first goal in the NHL, there's always a shot of, they talk to the dad, and it's never, and the sons quite often, thank their dad for taking, but it's the moms who do so much of the work and get none of the credit. So I thought it was a brilliant idea. And when I retired from TV, I had time on my hands, and and especially with COVID, I was looking for a project, and I reached out and said, let's do it together if you're up for it. I thought the idea was brilliant, and I think we really worked well together. At least I think so. Maybe Teresa doesn't, but I think so.
Certainly from my perspective, knowing you both a little bit, seeing both of your names on the cover of this book, I think just makes it even more special. And Teresa, who are you hoping this book gets in the hands of?
Well, I think it's for every mother who has ever felt unheard or unrecognized in the game, or for every mother who has a child who's played. You'll relate to something. And something's happened over the last few days. We met with booksellers, and we've been talking to people about it. And we've tried to be very inclusive. There are people of different ethnicities. We have, all different backgrounds, and some people who have felt excluded in hockey, in the hockey world, have come up to me and said, thank you so much for including such a diverse range. So I think it's people who have felt excluded and want to feel included too.
I would just take it a step further. I agree. I think, moms, we did it for the moms, but I hope a lot of hockey dads read the book and get a better understanding of the sacrifice that the women in the game have made.
Beautifully said. Terry, do you have a favorite story or a favorite chapter?
Well, I got lots of favorite. The stories are beautiful because the mothers are terrific storytellers in their honesty. But I think my favorite one is Kristen Krause. Her son Lawson plays for Arizona, and most NHL teams have dad's trips where the dads travel with the team for a couple of days, stay with their sons. Very few have mothers trips. More are, and Arizona had a trip for the moms, and they all got together, and she said like 5 or 6 of us really hit it off well, and we went out for dinner with our sons, and then we went out to a karaoke bar, and one of our sons went to the DJ and said, can you just play some 80s dance music? Our moms get up and dance. So she said it was like wall-to-wall Madonna. We're having a great time. And then a slow song comes on, and she said if they were younger, it would have been so awkward. And said they all took us tenderly, and we slow danced with our sons. And she said it was a beautiful moment. And she said, this is one of those moments where I'm having a bad day. I reach down and I remember that, and that lifts me up. And so that was a beautiful story. And then she said, we're walking off the dance floor, and there are all these young girls watching all these older women dancing with these young, good-looking hockey players going, what's going on here?
Oh, my heavens.
Well, figure it out.
I knew this was going to happen. You've already teared me up already, Terry. And I know this book is full of great stories. I know it's going to be definitely in my home, and I'm going to devour every page. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
It's always a pleasure. Teresa Bailey and Terry Marcotte, the authors of Hockey Moms. Listen up, everybody. Christmas is just around the corner. A great gift for under the tree. And we wanted to head to College Ward right now because Pat McGarry is joining us. Hi, Pat. Pat, did we pull you off the campaign trail?
You did, and it's been a beautiful morning out there, but I'm more than happy to talk to you, and congratulations on your promotions and your new show. It's really nice to see the progression you've made and all your hard work paying off.
Thank you so much, Pat. I really appreciate it. How's the campaign going right now?
It's busy. It's busy. Certainly, the engagement at the door is much higher than it was through the summer months, which is fantastic. Because as I'm stressing to people, this is such an important election for our full city, and of course, College Ward as well. It's going to be a change for both, and we need to make sure that we have people who are ready to represent and who are, in my opinion, fully committed to doing so. And that means, an independent voice. It means people with experience, both knowing what to do at City Hall by reading financial statements properly, by being a proper board of director. And then at the ward level, we need people who are totally committed to communicating with the community, getting people engaged, and building our city back up.
Do you feel a difference, Pat, before Thanksgiving in terms of the engagement of people and after Thanksgiving? I found my network has woken up to the fact there's an election next Monday just in the last couple of weeks.
That's exactly right. Yes, absolutely. And it's so, it was great to talk to people at all times during this campaign for me. But at this time, it is really, really great because people are asking a lot of great questions. They are putting, certainly myself, and I know we've had a few full candidate discussions. People are asking for very direct questions, and I'm so glad that I have a community-supported campaign, one of volunteers and people who have known me for decades and decades that have stepped forward to help me. And I have to be very honest, Sam, it's overwhelming the amount of people, time that's required to run for a campaign. And again, I really stress to all voters in Ottawa, please vote, because people have stepped up. They've worked hard. They are doing this, I think, for the right reasons. And I can certainly speak to other candidates such as myself who are fully independent and relying just on volunteers, and that it's important that they get, I think, support. And please, when you look at independent candidates, please look and see what they're bringing to the table, because we've all had to deal with a lot of very challenging things behind the scenes. As you know, there's been some political campaigns that have been happening in our city, and I think it's very important that residents realize what has been happening, and please give extra support to those that are independent, because we've had to work probably 5 times as hard as every other candidate that has a large machine behind them.
And doing that research is so key, Pat. I mean, you just know how impactful this upcoming council, brand new mayor, is going to be. It's so important. We know 12% of people have already voted. It really is up to all of us, if we haven't voted already, to make it to the polls, of course, on Monday, October the 24th. Good luck on the campaign trail, and we look forward to the big day, October 24th.
Thank you for all you've been doing to help promote this campaign, Sam. Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Pat McGarry spending time with us today. And we know the testimony of Mayor Jim Watson is happening today at the Emergency Act inquiry. We know that this is a really important voice to be heard in all of this. We know Prime Minister Justin Trudeau eventually will be in that big seat as well. We'll be following very, very closely a lot of the testimony today. We understand as well Patricia Ferguson from the Ottawa Police Service is going to be testifying today. So lots to watch, lots to listen to here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
I would like to see politicians and government overall, especially locals, start to support local business more, because we've had so many businesses that have shut down, and I would like to see local business grow and politicians give more, whether that's a financial contribution or some other layer of support, but something to encourage them to keep business going.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talk.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 18th. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 9 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa police asking for your help to identify a suspect involved in an armed robbery in the Nepean area back in August. Police say the suspect entered a business on Highgate Road around midnight, ordered cigarettes, and when asked to pay, he brandished a knife and fled on foot with the stolen goods. A full description and picture of the suspect is available on our site at ottawa.citynews.ca. Anyone who has information is asked to contact the police robbery unit or submit a tip anonymously to Crime Stoppers. Ontario's Seneca College is dropping its mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy in the new year. Seneca, which has campuses across the GTA, was one of the last post-secondary institutions in Canada with a campus-wide COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Here at home, vaccine mandates at post-secondary schools such as U Ottawa, Carleton University, and Algonquin College have been dropped but remain optional. And the annual pace of housing starts in September rose to its highest level since November 2021, according to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The National Housing Agency says the annual rate of housing starts for September was up 11% from August. The increase came as the annual pace of urban starts rose 12% in September. City News Time 11:32. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. For local news anytime, head to ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, their sound is unmistakable. And of course, that Men of the Deeps. We wanted to speak with Stephen Muse today, the conductor. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, how you doing, Sam?
Good. Let's talk about Men of the Deeps. I know you're coming to Ottawa, and we're so happy that you are. When are you arriving?
We'll be arriving in bus the same day of the show, which I believe, if my calendar is correct, we're in North Bay right now. But that will be for a Tuesday or Wednesday evening show, the 19th, at the Meridian Theatre, the Centrepoint Theatre. So we're really looking forward to it.
Well, and have you been at that theatre before, Centrepoint Theatre?
We have. It's a beautiful theater. It's the audience is so close to you. It's so intimate and warm. It's perfect for the kind of show that the Men of the Deeps present.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I used to work in that building, so I had the pleasure of going to that theater a lot. And, you know, it just is one of those theaters. I don't know if it gets enough attention, and it's going to get a lot of attention when Men of the Deeps arrives. For those that haven't heard, Stephen, about your group before, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, the history dates back to 1966. This chorus was formed from existing coal miners. So a note was put up in the wash house at the pit, and these gentlemen who just had a passion for singing and loved music joined up to be in a choir. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They thought it was a one-off concert. And 56 years later, we've toured China, we've toured Kosovo, we've been all over North America and across this country. And this latest stop is our brand new project, After the Pit. and we're bringing it to theaters all across Ontario, and so excited to be coming back to Ottawa.
We're so happy that you're coming. I want to give those people, especially that haven't heard you, a taste of what this sounds like. Here we go with Working Man.
Thank you.
We're just going to pull that up, Steve. We're just going to take a second to do that. Here we go.
It's a working man I am. I've been down underground. I swear to God, if I ever see the sun, or for any length of time, I can hold it in my mind. I never again
To say, Stephen, I think, that the music just sounds like home to me, and I'm not even from down east, but does that make sense to you?
I'm finding it hard to hear you, Sam, over the music.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I said, the music really does sound like home to me, even though I'm not from down east. Does that make sense to you? Stephen, can you hear me?
I can now, yeah. Over the music, it was tough to hear you.
Yeah,
I was
no problem.
lost in Nipper's beautiful vocal there. It was great.
It was beautiful, absolutely. And I was just saying, it just really does sound like home, the music, even though people aren't from down east. It just sounds like home in many ways.
It really is, and I mean, that was the classic Rita McNeil track there, Working Man, and we do a tribute to Rita on this tour, and it really speaks, the story of the Men of the Deeps really speaks to everybody across this country, because it's a shared story. So we just love for people to come and give themselves up for a couple of hours and just enjoy what is a Cape Breton kitchen party. Lots of fun, lots of stories, lots of laughs, and just a great old time.
Sounds like fun. And I think, Stephen, especially with what has been, obviously the big storm, Hurricane Fiona, who, obviously wreaked havoc on the east, is it even more special to be traveling right now and sharing the message of the people of Cape Breton?
Well, definitely, because that hurricane came straight through the heart of Cape Breton Island. And there was a chance that this tour may not have been able to happen because of it. We lost power down there for a couple of weeks, but the fellas rallied, and we got on the plane, and here we are in Ontario, and we can't wait to share all of this, the stories of hope and all of those things that we look forward to.
Well, we certainly look forward to having you here, and the Capitol is ready for you, and I'm sure you'll be playing to a packed house at that beautiful theater, Centerpoint Theater. I'm assuming there's tickets still available. I hope there is, in case someone's inspired right now listening to us, and they'll have a chance to spend time with all of you.
Yes, I believe they're going fast, but there are some available. If you would like to come and celebrate the East Coast with us, I would love to have you there.
That's fantastic, Stephen. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Pleasure. Stephen Muse joining us, of course, Men of the Deeps. He's the conductor, that concert happening at Centerpoint Theater, and there's just once again that beautiful theater. The opportunity to spend time at that theater is certainly welcomed. We know that today is the 4th day of the Emergencies Act, and of course the important testimony that's taking place today by Mayor Jim Watson. We've seen a number of other people take the stand at that, and we know Steve Kanalakis, city manager, was in that big seat yesterday testifying, and we know there's been a number of other representatives, and lots of people will be sharing the message, and a couple of those people, of course, will be probably very interesting to all Canadians, and of course that will be Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland's going to be testifying, and we know Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It's going to be a very, very interesting number of weeks, so we're going to be following that story very, very closely. It's going to be a very interesting day. We're going to speak with David Smith. David's going to join us to talk a little bit about the Emergencies Act and what we're seeing. I know certainly from my perspective, the testimony that I've seen, really surprised at how uncoordinated these efforts were. I looked back in my email. My producer at the time was Dave Tripp. And I looked back in my email, and it was January the 8th that I sent a message to Dave Tripp saying, I think we need to be following this story very closely. So it is surprising to me that we're hearing that people didn't realize that this was going to be the big deal that it ended up being. Is that shocking to you, David?
Is it shocking? It's certainly dominating the proceedings today. Is it shocking to me that there was this level of no coordination between the various groups? Is it shocking to me? No. Is it disappointing? Absolutely. What does it all mean in terms of the overall inquiry? What is the point of the inquiry? Well, we're trying to figure out whether or not the federal government was within its rights to invoke the Emergencies Act to clear the protest. The picture that is emerging today, the storyline that is emerging today is very much that in those early weeks, for the first 2 of the 3 weeks, the law enforcement in Ottawa was completely out of their depth. They had no coordination. There was very little meaningful communication between the 3 levels of government. And they were really at their wits' end. It seems like nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew who should be taking lead, and nobody knew where the resources were going to be coming from. It's hard to really break it down simply, but I'm going to do my best here. There are enough police officers in Canada to deal with multiple situations at a time. Apparently, there does not exist the command structure to coordinate that. Apparently, the law enforcement agencies all across the country are really only capable of working on one thing at a time. That's basically what we've heard this morning. In order to clear the blockade at Windsor, there was no help for Ottawa. That's basically what it boils down to. The officers were in Windsor and they weren't in Ottawa. And that's why for those weeks, as we all remembered, it seemed like there was no law enforcement in Ottawa. Why was that? Because all of the command and the brass and the organizational resources, whatever you want to call it, were focused on this other situation, and Ottawa was effectively on the back burner.
But David, you'll also agree that really Premier Doug Ford only really woke up to what was happening in Ottawa when it started happening in Windsor.
Exactly, and this is what is just happening at the Commission. That's why I'm still here, because I've been following it very closely. They've just taken a break for the morning, and it came after a long stretch of testimony from Jim Watson, which has been very interesting and illuminating. So I'll try and break it down for you as best as I can here. At issue is a February 9th phone call between the Prime Minister and Mayor Jim Watson. Okay, so they have a readout of the phone call. It's February 9th, mid-convoy protest in Ottawa. Jim Watson and Justin Trudeau are on the phone. And one thing they're talking about is the participation of Premier Doug Ford and the Ontario government in a trilateral command group. They were trying to set up this group of command, a command center, I guess you could say, that would feature all 3 levels of government. So the Ottawa City, Ottawa Police, federal government, RCMP, province, and OPP. They wanted everybody in the same room, meeting daily or regularly to better coordinate the resources and figure out where are the resources, because there were announcements saying, we have 150 OPP officers on the ground in Ottawa. And then 2 days later, Mayor Watson would come out and say, well, that's not true. They're not here. We can't find them. So it was very confusing. And you can sense the frustration as Mayor Watson testifies that he has with the provincial government when he's remembering that time. But let's play a little bit of audio so that people can hear what it sounds like at the commission and try and contextualize for you what's just happened. So this is a clip of a commission lawyer, the head counsel for the commission, reading part of the transcript of that phone call between Justin Trudeau and Jim Watson and asking Mayor Watson about his comments and the Prime Minister's comments. So here's what that sounded like. This was maybe 10 minutes ago at the inquiry.
And then he says, but Doug Ford has been hiding from his responsibility on it for political reasons, as you highlighted, and important that we don't let them get away from that, and we intend to support you on that. So what was your understanding of the political reasons of why Premier Ford, according to the Prime Minister, was hiding from his responsibility?
Well, I can't speculate on what the Prime Minister said, but I think I shared his frustration that they wouldn't participate in the tripartite. We couldn't get a clear answer as to whether they were going to support the number of officers that we needed. the Premier did not come to Ottawa during the occupation. I think there was a sense by some in the community, why is the Premier not here? But in fairness, sometimes when you bring a leader into a situation, it causes more disruption because you need extra police and so on.
So there's that. Jim Watson and Justin Trudeau agreed on the phone at the time that Doug Ford was hiding from the situation, deliberately trying to not be involved for political reasons. And then further to that, here's more of Jim Watson explaining why he felt Doug Ford was not pulling his weight in terms of supporting Ottawa law enforcement at that time, and at that time, this is a few days before the act was ultimately invoked. This is, if I'm not mistaken, it is the blockade in Windsor is there, but it hasn't been cleared yet, and it's the beginning of the situation in Coots. So here is Jim Watson talking about that period.
I think he was probably more comfortable not getting into the mix of this until they were able to come up with the number of officers that he could announce were supporting our officers.
But the Prime Minister here is saying that you're saying that it's for political reasons.
Well, we're all politicians, the three of us, and my sense is that he didn't necessarily want to wear the situation because he felt that it was very much the responsibility of the Ottawa Police Service, and I fundamentally disagreed with him. I said, of course, they're the lead police service. They have that legal jurisdiction, but we need the help of the other two orders of government with police officers.
So where was Doug Ford? And notably, Doug Ford will not be testifying.
Well, I found that really interesting, and we have to remember, I mean, sometimes we can forget, we were only 4 or 5 months away from the election, right?
Mm-hmm,
I mean, we have to remember that June 2nd was the election, and he was probably just trying to keep himself clean. We know he wasn't popular at that time as well, David, if we look back on that time.
Omicron was happening, provincial mandates were still in effect, and despite the stated aims of the Freedom Convoy movement, there were people on the ground in Ottawa who were obviously there because they were unhappy with provincial government mandates, not federal government mandates. There were a lot of people there. Whatever the stated aims were, there were people on the ground in Ottawa who were there because they were protesting the provincial mandate.
Well, I think you remember when the list came out, I mean, we looked for Premier Doug Ford's name. It wasn't there. I was surprised. I know other people in the newsroom were surprised as well. We're following this story very closely. Thank you so much, David Smith, for joining us. David just couldn't leave the newsroom today.
Anytime.
He just had to stay with us here. And we want you to stay with us on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, local singer, songwriter, and actress Steph La Rochelle joining us on the show. Her brand new album, and it's her debut album, is being released at the end of the week. She'll drop by and tell us about all the new songs. We'll also talk to a business that specializes in accessible renovations, and we'll introduce you to a Canadian dating app that is designed for people living with disabilities. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa.
He fell. Whoa, I'm not driving. I'm way too stoned. How are you feeling, Veer?
Oh, since we had that talk, I'm not driving tonight at all.
What about you, Dave?
You only had a couple of drinks.
And only a couple of puffs.
I don't drink and drive. No way I'm getting behind the wheel when I smoked weed, too.
How are we getting home, then?
Oh, you can drive, Dave.
Come on, Dave.
Take one for the team, buddy.
Don't let weed and alcohol influence your decision to drive.
Yeah, I need a ride.
$20. And Maggie, Mrs. Calabash, come into my kitchen. A quick mayonnaise, egg yolks, garlic, Dijon mustard, lemon juice, olive oil, immersion blender. Go down, come up. Voila, mayonnaise. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
Monday, October 24th, is Municipal Election Day in Ontario, an important election to set the post-pandemic course for our community. Turn to Rogers TV for the local results, your comprehensive coverage as the votes are counted. Tune in to find out who's heading to Municipal Council. On election night, Rogers TV leads with local.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
We are certainly following very closely the Emergencies Act inquiry. Mayor Jim Watson is still testifying. So we're following this story very closely for you here on Rogers TV and City News. We wanted to spend some time today with Ben Wise from the Historical Society of Ottawa. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Sam. I do have to apologize. I'm having phone network problems this morning. You might lose me.
Okay, so if we lose you, we'll just carry on. Thank you so much, Ben, for advising us. We know, of course, history is in the making right now with the Emergencies Act. But if you look back in history, what are you seeing, Ben? What happened around this time back in our history of Ottawa?
Yeah, it was a half century ago, and the current Prime Minister's father had to make some similar decisions. And again, events have been transpiring for a number of weeks. Different solutions had been sought after, and eventually Pierre Trudeau stood in the front of Parliament Hill and answered a reporter's question about how far he would go, and he said, "Just watch me." And that was when he put into force the War Measures Act. Now, that act was different from the act that we have in place now. The revised act was actually designed so that the country would have something to use that wouldn't be as severe as the War Measures Act that Justin Trudeau's father had to put into place. Again, with this act, there was never a steadfast answer as to whether it's been the right thing to do or not. One thing I've always said is I'm happy not to be in the shoes of the people who have to make these decisions, and we can second guess the decisions, and maybe they go too far, maybe they don't, but history is always the look back and deciding whether the right decision was made or not.
Absolutely. What else do you see when you look back?
When I look back in terms of what?
In terms of Ottawa, like anything else happening sort of around this week that's of note?
Yes, absolutely. One of the stories that this from Ottawa's past is about the Shiners, the Irish Shiners, and it was this week 187 years ago that Bytowners had finally had enough. So the Shiners were a nasty gang. It was the 1830s, and they were an Irish gang, and quite often the subject of their wrath were the French Canadians. There was great rivalry in 1830s Bytown. It was a very rough and tumble place, but really amplifying things was the leader of the Shiners. His name was Peter Aylen, and he had an agenda that went far beyond ethnic animosity. He was a businessman, and he wanted to take control of the lumber country. So a lot of what he did in terms of agitating the Shiners and had to do more with business than anything else. So that was kind of an interesting situation. It was a tough situation back then. There were a few constables in town. There wasn't really any true police force. Even the constables were basically paid based on arrests and convictions. Some of them might even been on aliens' payroll. And back then, the county seat was Perth. So if anybody needed to be tried or jailed, the constables had to take them all the way through the countryside to Perth. And you can imagine with hundreds of these shiners around, the chances of a constable getting his apprehendee as far as Perth were pretty slim. So it was a pretty wild and woolly place back then.
Wow. I as you know, I love looking back on the history of Ottawa, and there's just so much to uncover. And I'm so happy you joined us today to give us a taste of what was happening in the city, in the region during that time. And I hope you'll join us again, Ben.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really interesting to see the similarities there. Of course, Pierre Trudeau calling that War Measures Act, and we know Justin Trudeau this year earlier calling that Emergencies Act. And the Emergencies Act inquiry, of course, is happening now. We're going to take a minute. We're going to zip into to hear a little bit of what's happening at the Emergencies Act inquiry. Here's Mayor Jim Watson.
In front of us, both on television and in person. So it was a horrific experience for the people who live there, who tried to work there, who tried to visit our city. It's had long-lasting impacts on many people's health. It's hurt our tourism industry, for instance. And, we have to rebuild that trust with the public and with the police. And we have to, on a go-forward basis, learn lessons, and hopefully the Commissioner's report will bring forward a series of recommendations that we, if we ever have a situation like this, we do much better for the public.
And so you said, early on it was clear that the city was overwhelmed and that it didn't have the resources to handle this, right. Not just on the police side, but on the municipal level as well. From the 31st, I think it became clear that this was not something that was going to just resolve itself on its own. And I'll come back to this point. Could declaring a state of emergency earlier, as of, for example, the 31st of January, have signaled that the city was overwhelmed, that it was treading water, and a signal to the other levels of government to act accordingly?
No, our staff were very clear that, again, I reiterate the fact that a municipal state of emergency, I think people see on television mayors in United States cities declaring states of emergency and the powers they have. It wouldn't have made a big difference at all. In hindsight, I suppose if I was to recommend to my successor, we often get this question by the public and people get quite exercised. Why aren't you declaring a state of emergency? In hindsight, maybe we just declare it so it brings that peace of mind to the public that we know it's an emergency. We didn't need a document to know that this was an extraordinary, dangerous, serious situation that was going to have negative impacts on our residents and, quite frankly, the country. And the frustration was that the reason why we wanted the RCMP there was the protesters were protesting federal legislation right across from Parliament Hill and the Prime Minister's office. We needed provincial support, as they did in Windsor, because there was an economic imperative that our city not be shut down for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks.
And so aside from maybe signaling that need for assistance earlier with the state of emergency, what else could the city have done differently, and what else will the city do differently next time?
Well, we're going through the debate as to what to do with Wellington Street, for instance. I think we're going to have there's a motion passed, many motions passed by my colleagues on council, and one of the motions passed clearly indicated that we have to do something to protect the parliamentary precinct, both in terms of who should be patrolling.
We're listening to Mayor Jim Watson at
Wellington
the Emergencies Act inquiry. We're going to be following this very closely. When we come back, it's Lunch with Sam. What's better than one mayor? Well, two. David Thompson, Claudette Kane. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the 5 top news stories of the day. Stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Things like the convoy really showed a lot of separation between municipal parties and even federal, provincial lines of communication. So we want to see a lot more responsibility taken on funds that really affect people in the city, as well as probably seeing increases in housing and industrial space.
There we go.
Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, October 18th. I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 9 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The response or lack thereof from the provincial government deals with the Freedom Convoy protests seem to be the focus today as Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson testifies at the public inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act. Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with the details.
Some very interesting testimony coming out of the inquiry today. Throughout his time on the witness stand, Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson has been detailing the many times that the city had gone to the province looking for additional resources and more help, but were met with hesitation or silence. Then the lawyer for the commission read out a transcript of a one-on-one call between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mayor Watson where they discussed the Ford government.
And then he says, but Doug Ford has been hiding from his responsibility on it for political reasons, as you highlighted. And important that we don't let them get away from that, and we intend to support you on that.
Those were the words of the Prime Minister, and Watson says he shared the frustration from the feds about the response from the province.
That they wouldn't participate in the tripartite. We couldn't get a clear answer as to whether they were going to support the number of officers that we needed.
Watson says he was also unaware the province had offered to meet with protesters at the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor in order to negotiate an end to that blockade, saying it was never offered to Ottawa. Watson says when the province did finally truly engage at the end of the second week of the protest, it was a big help, and notes the protest should have ended in week 1, not week 3. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News time, 12:02. Time for City News, traffic and weather together. Here's Jamie Montgomery.
I'm Gord Taylor with City News Traffic. A collision investigation has closed a couple of streets in Sandy Hill. King Edward northbound is closed from Man to Templeton. King Edward is also closed in both directions between Templeton and Laurier. And Somerset westbound and Marie Curie eastbound are both closed at King Edward. 417 westbound Nicholas on-ramp, we have a stalled dump truck on the right shoulder. In Gatineau, water main repairs underway at Monte-Paymont and Leverandre. Leverandre westbound is closed from Ginaru and Monte-Paymont. And the 50 eastbound off and on ramps are closed at Lorraine and Airport Boulevard till 3 this afternoon. It's Canadian Tire's biggest tire sale with up to 25%.
Guaranteed high today, 10 degrees. We'll have increasing clouds, some showers. Just a chance, though. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 2. And tomorrow, start with some sun, get into cloud, periods of light rain, may even mix with some snow for some areas tomorrow. The high about 9 degrees. For today, the guaranteed high, 10.
Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 9 degrees. And in Smith Falls, it's 10. The mayoral debate continues in Ottawa with another one last night in the Glebe. City News reporter Chris Curries with a recap.
Just holding ground, really. No one firing a knockout blow. And Mark Sutcliffe and Catherine McKenney, the two frontrunners, largely trading the same barbs. McKenney saying if we follow Sutcliffe's line-by-line budget review plan, it will mean cuts.
When we have done this in the past, it has led to service cuts.
And Sutcliffe saying there won't be any cuts and there's no hole in the budget. But McKenney's bike lane plan cost could balloon to $450 million.
I don't think that's a priority for the majority of residents in Ottawa.
Voting day is on Monday. Rob Snow and Sam Laprade will host a special show from 7 till 10 p.m. on election night. Chris Curries, City News.
The Ford government is launching new career fairs to attract young people to the skilled trades. City's Richard Southern with more.
Well, it is a first as the government looks to tackle a worker shortage. Labour Minister Monty McNaughton says the Ford government will launch a series of interactive career fairs this fall to attract young people to the skilled trades.
Students from grades 7 to 12 will get the chance to learn about the 144 different trades, from arborists to elevator technicians to welders, as well as get hands-on experience to see what these exciting careers are like.
The government is billing it the Level Up Fair. It'll start for 3 days in Mississauga next week.
Interested students and parents can visit ontario.ca/trades for more information and speak with their teacher or guidance counselor to register.
Recruitment important because 1 in 3 workers in skilled trades is over the age of 55. Richard Southern, City News.
As Canadians struggle with inflation, the Loblaws price freeze on their no-name items is being called into question. City's Sonia Aslam with more.
We're talking about Metro. They are the third largest grocer in the country behind Loblaw and Sobeys, and they sent a statement to Bloomberg saying this is industry practice and it's common to have a price freeze from about November 1st to February 5th. I asked Loblaw and they say that's not true, adding they've never done this before and freezing prices on items like produce, eggs, bread and flour for the next 3 months is unprecedented in this country. They go on to guarantee these items won't see a price increase. Now, the other aspect of this move being called into question is how much money Loblaws is making right now. In the second quarter of this year, they made $387 million. That's an increase of $12 million compared to the same time last year. So why is Loblaw doing this now? They tell me they wanted to do something for people as we head into the biggest buying period of the year. But keep in mind, tomorrow morning, Stats Canada is going to release its latest inflation report. In August, the rate eased for a second month, but food costs grew to a pace we have not seen since the 80s. This also comes not long after Ottawa said it was going to investigate whether grocery chains in this country are overcharging people and keeping the extra profits for themselves. Sonia Aslam, City News.
And I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I don't know if you've heard all the big news on Rogers TV and City News, but we've had some shifts happening, and we wanted to share them with you. Rob Snow, you're going to be able to wake up with Rob Snow. You might have for the last couple of mornings. He's going to be on from 6 to 9 every day. First at 5 with Andrew Boyle. So if you're getting up really early, you'll be with Andrew Boyle. And from 9 to 10, our producer and host, David Smith, will be taking your calls on the Talkback Hour. So it's still an opportunity to have your voice heard. And then, of course, I join you from 10 to 1. And we decided to do the lunchtime hour a little bit different. We have a feature called Lunch with Sam, where we invite 2 community members in to talk about the top 5 news stories of the day. And it's my pleasure to welcome to the show Claudette Kane, former mayor of Gloucester, and David Thompson, former mayor of Deep River. Hello to you both.
Hi, nice to talk to you.
It's great to connect with you. I always think, what's better than one mayor? Well, 2 mayors, of course.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The Emergencies Act testimony, I'm sure you're all glued to your TVs as I am. I've been watching as many minutes as I can. Claudette, is there anything in the Emergencies Act testimony that has surprised you so far?
No, not really, because it's very evident when you're listening or watching that everyone is well rehearsed, very well prepared for the questions before them. But I think that one is just everyone who's testifying is throwing the ball to somebody else. And so that ball, wherever it's going to land, will be the decision of the inquiry, I guess. But right now, it's just ball throwing as far as I can see.
It's really interesting you say that because, of course, Mayor Jim Watson, of course, is testifying today, and he really is throwing the ball back at Premier Doug Ford, who's not going to be testifying, which is really interesting. David Thompson, what do you think when you have been watching some of the testimony?
What I find frustrating, Sam, is the overlap of jurisdictions. You have the Ottawa Police Service, the Ontario Provincial Police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Legislative Protective Service. We have 4 jurisdictions for a city of 1 million people. And what happens then is exactly what Claudette is saying, is you have no clear chain of command, and you have people pointing fingers at each other. The bottom line is, Sam, we need 1 police force. We don't need 4.
And of course, Claudette, you sat in the mayor's chair for many, many years. You had a lot of tough decisions to make. Do you feel, that Mayor Watson did his best, or are you critical of what we're hearing so far?
I think probably everybody did their best from what they knew at the time, and nobody knew anything. Everybody was getting a little piece of the pie, and in terms of knowledge of what was going on and who was negotiating what with who. But I think, as mayor, especially of the nation's capital, you have to make some difficult decisions, some difficult recommendations. And I kudos to Mayor Watson for actually getting involved in negotiations and unsticking some of the blockages that were, and I mean that not blockages, but in the negotiations, was able to come up with some sort of deal to get them to move. But I think the emergency. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can still hear you, Claudette.
The Emergencies Act really got things going, and I support the invoking of it.
It's going to be really interesting because at the end of the inquiry, we know we have 65 different people sharing their perspective. David, what at the end of all of this do you expect will actually be the result?
I don't think there's going to be a change, Sam. When Mayor Watson kind of inserted himself into this process, that was out of line. That's not his role. And I think it created more confusion than it did help. And so what we really need, though, is just a single jurisdiction that is responsible for police protection in our city. And until that happens, we're always going to have situations where one party has information and the other party doesn't. And this will continue to happen again and again.
Let's shift gears a little bit. We know that Ontario education workers are now poised to strike. They can strike as of November the 3rd. What were your thoughts, Claudette, as you've heard them share their story over the last number of weeks about their wages, about what they're looking for from the government? Do you expect that we'll be seeing them strike?
Well, I don't believe in negotiating in public. It's because it can backfire on you and create more hype than anything. I really hope that this is not a deja vu and a threat to strike just, not long after the kids are back in school. We need those workers. And we need the admin, we need the cleaners, we need all of the ancillary workers along with the teachers. And the risk that happens is the teachers may say, well, we can't perform our duties now because they're gone. And then we have a support by the teachers of the strikers, and I don't support that at all.
Well, I can't help but think, obviously, not only about teachers, but of course, parents and what they've been through. We remember those strikes, of course, David, before the pandemic, and what this pandemic has been like on parents. What are your thoughts about this possible strike?
Well, first and foremost, you have to remember, Sam, that the employer creates the terms and conditions of employment, not the employee. And if you don't like the terms and conditions of your employment, then you're free to find a different job, or you're free to create your own. What is, I think, a little bit flabbergasting here, you listen to the CUPE ads and they say it's all about the kids, it's all about the kids. Yet the very same members are now going to withhold their services from the children that they supposedly care about. And so, you know, to me, it's simple. It has nothing to do with the kids. It's about the money. It's always about the money, always has been, always will be.
Really interesting. We have so much more to talk about. When we come back, we're going to be talking about, well, I know, you know, the municipal election is only 6 days away. We're going to talk about the mayoral candidates as well as the award races that you are both watching. You'll want to lock it in to Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Sometimes, for a wish to come true, it takes a kingdom, because together is stronger. Tied tight, united we stand, in honor of one child's wish, to fuel the fire that will grant many more. Join the kingdom.
Behold Emily Carr, painter, about to encounter the force that will consume her life.
How tightly they sealed their secrets from me, humble and pleading before the great trees, awaiting the invitation from the Spirit to come meet me halfway. Nothing is still now, everything is alive. At last, I knew I must see through the eye of the totem itself, the mythic eye of the forest.
Seldom able to live by her brush, before she died in 1945, Emily Carr was in the first rank of Canadian painters.
This is my country. What I want to express is here, and I love it. Amen.
I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you. It's late September and I
Well, of course, that's the one and only Rod Stewart with a little Maggie May. We're back with David Thompson, former mayor of Deep River, and Claudette Kane, former mayor of Gloucester. We know Rod Stewart's coming to the capital in August 2023. David Thompson, are you heading to that show? David, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Are you heading to that show by chance?
Well, you know what, Sam? I've had the good fortune of seeing Rod Stewart in Las Vegas, and so probably won't take up the most current opportunity. But there's lots of great music coming to Ottawa.
Absolutely.
There's a show coming up with a couple of Canadian icon bands, the Northern Pikes and the Pursuit of Happiness, and I'm taking my youngest son as a birthday gift to go see Finger 11 at the Bronson Center. So lots of music still to come.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Claudette, are you a big Rod Stewart fan?
Well, I'm a fan of some of his songs, and I may take him to concert just because I can, and it's a good venue for us in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm looking forward to Ed Sheeran coming.
Yes. There's so many great bands coming. Journey's coming. Journey's coming March of 2023 as well. We announced that yesterday on City News, and Rob Snow's been giving away tickets to Journey as well. So definitely lots happening in the capital. And we know in the capital next Monday, the big show will be election night. Claudette, how have the mayoral candidates done so far?
Well, it's exciting. It's exciting for me just to have a municipal race, and now it's 14 candidates, but really two that are going. One or two top ones are going to be our next mayor of the nation's capital, and I think both Mark Sutcliffe and Catherine McKinney have worked very hard, have developed detailed plans and made detailed, precise platforms. So we have a choice. And there's 35% of people who haven't made that choice. And that breaks my heart, because municipal government is where the rubber hits the road, Sam. And these two candidates deserve to have our support. If we don't go vote, we have nothing to complain about afterwards.
100%.
And we're finding here that we have two strong candidates, very different in their approach, and so there is a choice. People need to do their homework, because the candidates have been doing their homework.
And we know 12% of eligible voters have voted already in those advanced polls.
Yeah.
The last opportunity, of course, is Election Day, October 24th. How have the top candidates done in your mind, David?
Well, it's a very clear choice, and as Claudette says, it really is between two candidates with two, very different approaches to City Hall. And I think they've been able to articulate those differences, and so voters should have a pretty clear choice. Now, on the one side, I am concerned about Councillor McKenney's economic plan. She uses words like green bonds. Well, Sam, you and I both know if you call a bond green or a rainbow or unicorn, it's still the same thing. It's debt. And I'm not sure adding that level of debt is going to be sustainable in the city. Whereas Mark is, he's a very reasoned and prudent businessman, and he's very much a consensus builder. And I think that Councillor McKenney is a little bit more divisive. So, I think Mark would be a visionary leader, and I hope he's successful on Monday.
Any predictions who we're going to be referring to as mayor as of next Monday night, Claudette?
Well, I too believe that it should be Mark Sutcliffe for the same reasons that David just pronounced. The economic plan. When a candidate tells us that municipal finance is a very complex and complicated subject, and it scares the heck out of me, because it's not complicated. You just got to do the math. And I'm sorry, but Miss McKenney's math is not adding up. And the fear of raising taxes, number one, raising our debt, which is at, I think we're in the billions, and then raising our reserves, our money for emergencies. That's a really scary thing. And so people need to look at especially now, right? Everything's going up. Affordability is right at the forefront, and there's one taxpayer. It's you and me. Doesn't matter if you're taking it out of debt or you're creating debt or taking it out of the bank, out of your reserves. It's still our money. And to come up with outrageous numbers for bike lanes as one example, it doesn't add up. It doesn't fly with me, and I'm assuming that it won't fly with everybody.
Really interesting. We only have a couple minutes left. I'd love to know, is there a race, David, that you are watching that you particularly have your eye on?
There's a couple of different ones, Sam, and as you know, incumbents are quite challenging to defeat. But in this election, we have 11 different wards when there is no incumbent. And so all of those races are going to be exciting to watch. There's a real dogfight up in Osgood between former Mayor Doug Thompson and current councillor George DeRuse. And it's turned into a bit of a grudge match. And I'm certainly very interested in my own ward, Ward 8, College Ward. We are finally getting rid of the pariah, Rick Shirelli. And again, we have two very diverse choices. We have kind of a left-of-center candidate, Lane Johnson, and a right-of-center candidate, Pat McGarry. And I think it's going to be a very close race between the two of them.
Claudette, where do you have your eyes?
Where do I have my eye?
Sorry, I was asking Claudette who she's watching.
I'm really looking downtown where Mark Fleury was the counselor there, and given all the stuff that's happened with the convoy and everything, what kind of impact is that going to have on this election campaign in that ward? As we know, he had to flee his home with his family and all of that stuff. And so it's going to be interesting who comes up with the required votes in that ward. That's a big one, I think, given the situation that we're in. But, you know, we have Caroline Meehan, who's not running anymore in the Gloucester South. We have a former councillor, Steve DeRoche, who is trying to come back. And so there's the only guarantee we have, right, is that there's going to be a lot of new blood on that council.
Right, absolutely. We're going to be following it very closely here. Rob Snow and myself are going to be here on election night from starting at 7 o'clock here on City News and watching this election. It's going to be very interesting, and I've really enjoyed my time with both of you today. Thanks for having lunch with me today, you two.
Great chatting with you, Sam.
Thank you so much. David Thompson, former mayor of Deep River, joining us, and former mayor of Gloucester, Claudette Kane, spending time with us as well. When we come back, well, we're going to have the business lunch. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Do you have something to share?
Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap. On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, October 18th. Good afternoon. I'm Pirishka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 10 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is speaking right now on what is day 4 of the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Watson told the commission that his city's back was against the wall, with protesters showing complete disrespect to the residents of the city. He says he wrote in a letter appealing for help from other levels of the government. Watson says the city needs a large police presence just to get the situation under control. City News time, 12:30. Time for City News, traffic and weather together.
I'm Gord Taylor with City News Traffic. A collision investigation has closed a couple of streets in Sandy Hill. King Edward northbound is closed from Man to Templeton. King Edward is also closed in both directions between Templeton and Laurier. In Somerset westbound and Marie Curie eastbound are both closed at King Edward. 417 westbound Nicholas on-ramp, we have a stalled dump truck on the right shoulder. In Gatineau, water main repairs underway at Monte-Paymont and Leverandre. Leverandre westbound is closed from Ginaru and Monte-Paymont. And the 50 eastbound off and on ramps are closed at Lorraine and Airport Boulevard till 3 this afternoon. It's Canadian Tire's. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Increasing cloud, chance of some more showers today. Are guaranteed high 10 degrees below average. The average high is about 12. Tonight, partly cloudy down to just 2 degrees. Some showers may mix with some snow at times for tomorrow. Otherwise, sun, cloud, the high about 9. For today, the guaranteed high 10.
Right now in Ottawa, sunny skies and 10 degrees. Now, Ottawa fire crews are responding to a potential gas leak on Metcalfe Street off Nepean and Lisgar Street. Fire crews have evacuated the building and are asking residents to avoid the area if possible. I'm Pirishka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, thank you so much for being with us for the business lunch on the Sam Laprade Show here on Rogers TV and City News. We're so happy that you're here. We wanted to really take a deep dive into all things business. We're going to take this time to do that. We wanted to talk about, the business of tourism, such an important part of our city. And Jantine Van Cregden joins us now, Director of Communications for Ottawa Tourism. Hi, Jantine.
Hi, Sam. How you doing?
Good, Jantine. I think about, early on in the pandemic, you and I had conversations about the impact of losing hospitality in this city and tourism. It really was a devastating blow. Let's talk a little bit about how we've recovered from that. What are we seeing, Jantine?
Well, we saw a very good summer, I must say, especially July and August and even into September. Those were great months for leisure travel. So leisure travel is, a family vacation or a girlfriend's getaway. Where we're seeing a bit longer coming back to recovery is business travel. So a lot of federal government employees are still working from home, meaning in-person meetings aren't as prevalent. So people who would have been coming to town to meet or attend a conference might be doing that virtually, so that has an impact in filling hotel rooms. But leisure travel, we're looking fairly good, and we've got some interesting things on the horizon as well.
Well, that's exciting. Are you going to tease us, or are you going to tell us something? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, one cool thing that we have not had, and it still kind of boggles my mind that we haven't had a hop-on, hop-off tour in the winter months.
Oh,
the folks who own Lady Dive and Grey Line Ottawa, they're launching cobblestone tours on November 1st, and between November 1st and April 30th, you'll be able to take a hop-on, hop-off tour. And they're planning special Christmas lights tours as it gets closer to Christmas, and possibly some winterlude activities. So that's a great new addition to the scene.
It's amazing. There's not often you think to yourself, well, that's really cool. Why didn't someone think of that before, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's brilliant. That's really great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That's definitely something we'll be following. You know, the business of tourism, you know, how important it is, obviously, to have all the people to provide the hospitality. Are you still seeing people looking for talent and for staff at this time in the tourism sector?
Definitely, that's still a concern. Ottawa Tourism months and months ago launched the Work in Tourism Job Board, where we actually post job opportunities in the tourism sector. It's meant to be kind of the go-between between the job seekers and the opportunities. And we've seen great success with that. We've seen hundreds of listings, and there's still a demand out there for employees, that's for sure. But we're doing our best to share the word, and it really is an exciting time to be in the tourism industry because we're building back, we're rebuilding, and we're not going back to exactly the same way things were in 2019, but we're trying to build a better industry and a more connected, a more sustainable industry. So if you've got passion, if you've got vision, this is an exciting time to be in the tourism industry.
Well, hopefully 2023, 24, and 25 see those conferences start to come back. We know how long it takes, Gentine. I've certainly been involved in many of them over the years, how long it takes to coordinate those, get your sponsorship in place, get all the logistics done. So hopefully those are going to be coming back as well.
Exactly. And our team at Ottawa Tourism on the convention side, they've had an incredible couple of years where, they've had cancellations and then rebookings and then further cancellations and then further negotiations and possibilities, and hybrid conferences where there's in-person as well as virtual components. So they've been at the same time still selling the city for 2025 and 2026 and beyond. So my hat's off really to them and to the whole that whole part of the industry for their flexibility and their stick-with-itness, if you know what I mean.
For sure. That's an official word, by the way, so that's good. Gentine, let's talk a little bit about the festivals and the economic impact of the festivals. We often speak with Mark Monahan from Blues Fest. We speak with, all of the different organizers for the Tulip Festival, all of them, and we always ask, what's the boom of these festivals? It seems like, out of every probably 52 weeks, we probably have 40 festivals that happen here. You could probably coordinate that a little bit better than the numbers than I can, but give us a sense of what it means for these festivals.
Well, the festivals, not only do festivals improve the quality of life of Ottawans, but it also provides a reason to visit or a reason to extend your stay if you're coming to Ottawa. So festivals are a year-round industry. It's not just the summer Canada Days and Blues Fests. In fact, right now, currently, we're in the middle of the 25th anniversary of the Ottawa International Writers Festival. That's on until October 26th. The Festival of Small Halls is on, so they have top-notch acts performing in small venues throughout Eastern Ontario. The Day of the Dead Festival is coming to the Byron Market October 28th to 30th. That's something to look forward to as well.
Well, that's one I haven't heard of, I'll be honest.
It's a Mexican celebration to kind of commemorate loved ones who have passed on.
Okay.
It's quite colorful.
Excellent. I'm really excited because tonight I'm heading to the NAC to see Mean Girls, Broadway across Canada, and it's those staycation or those opportunities to be a tourist in your own hometown, if you will, and usually we have dinner and we make a night of it, right? And that's so important. Still, we still need to enjoy our own capital.
Exactly, and that's one message that we've been hammering home over the past 2.5 years about how much there is to see and do, and how everyone is part of the tourism industry as well. So when you go out and do these fun things, we hope that you're also sharing them on social media so that your friends and relatives and contacts elsewhere in the country or around the world see what there is to see and do, and maybe inspire them for a visit. Fall Rhapsody is on now. It wraps up this weekend. The fall colors are absolutely stupendous in this region. And it's not just Gatineau Park, although the free shuttle that takes you out there this weekend, that's a great addition by the National Capital Commission. But the Greenbelt, heck, even Majors Hill Park and Confederation Park downtown. I live in Hintonburg, and I'm looking out my window now at reds and oranges and yellows that are just breathtaking. Those are the images we want people to share and talk about as the season progresses.
For sure. I even made my way out to Stanley's Old Maple Farm last weekend, and it was stunning, Gentine. It was absolutely beautiful. So
you don't have to go to the most popular places like Gatineau Park. There's so many hidden gems.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thanks for chatting with us today on the Business Lunch, talking all things business when it comes to tourism. Hope you'll join us again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentine Van Gregden joining us, Director of Communications for Ottawa Tourism. Certainly appreciate her time. It has been obviously a very busy news day today with Mayor Watson testifying today at the Emergency Act inquiry. We're going to sneak a little bit in there, hear a little bit of the testimony. Stay with us here on City News.
Sort of orders or bylaws, right?
Yes, they don't pass bylaws, but...
And as the former Minister of Municipal Affairs, you also know that, of course, the province of Ontario and the Premier and the ministers at the provincial level, they have no ability to order the OPP to do anything with respect to resources either.
That's correct.
Right. So you know these two things, right? And you knew them at the time.
Yes.
Right. And it would have been the commissioner of the OPP that would be making those decisions, right?
Yes, he was in contact with Chief Slowly.
Right, and at no time, and that's Mr. Thomas Carrerick, is that correct?
Right now, this is a conversation between Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson and the lawyer for the convoy organizers. So we're just going to listen to a little of this.
Of the OPP to outline what you wanted, right?
No, that would be inappropriate.
That would be inappropriate.
To contact an OPP officer.
He's the commissioner of the OPP. What's the difference? You're okay with having contact with the Prime Minister of the country, but you're not okay having contact with the commissioner of the OPP to ask him for what you need.
Because we have a system in place where we do not have politicians interacting directly with police officers or superintendents or commissioners. That would be highly inappropriate. That's why, as a politician, my counterpart is not the OPP commissioner, it's the Premier and the minister responsible for the Solicitor General. So it would be highly inappropriate. During this whole period, I did not once speak to the commissioner of the OPP or the commissioner of the RCMP. Completely inappropriate. So, I dealt at the political level with members of Parliament, members of provincial Parliament, ministers, and the Premier and the Prime Minister. That was my role in this period in our city's history.
Okay, and did you have phone calls with the Minister of Justice and the Premier with respect to what you needed?
Well, we had discussions with the Solicitor General and the Premier, and at the federal level, it was the Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Public Safety and the Prime Minister.
Right. And so, again, just in your statement that you provided, I didn't see when the dates were that you had these conversations with the Premier. When were they? What were the dates?
Well, I'll have to look them up. I don't recall what they are, but I believe it was in... It was 2 or 3 during the month of, I believe, February.
February. So
I stand to be corrected, but I don't know the specific dates. But the Prime Minister's office did provide a quasi-transcript, so we have the specifics on that. But these calls that I had with the Premier were, one of them was basically he called me on my cell phone. We had a long discussion about the situation that was on the ground, and then the other was when the Minister of the Solicitor General joined us and we had a discussion about the need for OPP officers.
Okay, so, and I can tell you that the Prime Minister and the Premier were talking around that time too. And the Premier had told the Prime Minister, and I'm going to put it to you that he also told you, that he had no ability to order the OPP to provide you officers. It had to come from the Commissioner and the OPP themselves, right?
Right.
Right, and he told you that.
I don't know if he told me that, but the Solicitor General sent a letter, as we saw earlier today, indicating that she had sent our request, the letter that Councillor Deans and I sent to the Premier and the Solicitor General. She had sent that to the Commissioner of the OPP, which is the proper route, not telling him what to do, indicating that this request has come in and to please take the appropriate action.
Right, and the Premier told you that he wouldn't join the tripartite meetings because it was pointless.
He felt it was a waste of time.
Right, and it was.
How do you know that?
Because you were looking for officers, and they couldn't order officers.
No, that's, I don't think you fully understand the situation, that I can't pick up the phone and start barking orders at a commissioner of any police service, whether it's the OPP or the RCMP. There's a protocol in place, and that protocol is to have a politician to politician. And the RCMP and the minister said the same thing. He can't direct Commissioner Leckie, but he can certainly pass along our request. And she made the decision, and we thank her and the Commissioner, because at the end of the day, they did provide the resources that ended up cleaning up this terrible situation our residents found themselves in.
Right, and this protocol...
Well, of course, that's Mayor Jim Watson in conversation with Brendan Miller, who is the lawyer for the convoy organizers. This is certainly some interesting testimony that we're hearing right now at the Emergencies Act inquiry. We will be staying with this, of course, all day. Lots of information coming out of the inquiry today. You'll want to lock it in to Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, local singer, songwriter, and actress Steph La Rochelle joining us on the show. Her brand new album, and it's her debut album, is being released at the end of the week. She'll drop by and tell us about all the new songs. We'll also talk to a business that specializes in accessible renovations, and we'll introduce you to a Canadian dating app that is designed for people living with disabilities. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa.
I think our schools need better resources. Teachers need to be paid better. I think that there should be programs for Black people that prioritize our needs, and I think the curriculum needs to be adjusted to reflect all peoples, not just one kind of person. And they should also invest a lot of money in programs, after-school programs that are not like relevant in 1990, but that are relevant today.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Connect. The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for spending time with us here on Rogers TV and City News. We're so happy that you're here. It is Small Business Week. We wanted an opportunity this week to get to know some of those small business owners in our community, and it's my pleasure to welcome Lee Grassi to the show. Hi, Leah.
Hi, how are you?
Great. And owner of Valley Microgreen. What do you do, Leah?
So essentially what we do is we just grow microgreens, and they are basically little mini vegetables that are jam-packed with nutrients, vitamins, and minerals.
Fantastic. So this isn't something I know a lot about. So who's your consumer?
So currently our consumer is residential. We do have some commercial as well that we've been sporting locally, but we do home deliveries around the Ottawa area.
That's fantastic. So is this something sort of new to this area, or have you been doing this a long time?
I think it's been growing in the area in the last few years. There are several of us farmers around, but I think it's becoming a little bit more popular in the last few years.
And what has it been like through the pandemic? Did your business keep growing, if you will, Leah?
It did. It did actually. I think I personally started in the pandemic, not on purpose.
Right.
I rolled out in the March of when COVID started.
Wow.
So it's been something that's been growing, if you will, in the last 3 years for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's beginning a little bit more popularity with a lot of people who are just trying to be healthy and keep ahead of the game on their nutrition.
Really interesting. And how did you come to sort of be part of microgreens?
I've always kind of enjoyed gardening, eating healthy. I have 2 young boys. They enjoyed growing things as well. So it was just a business that made sense to me, and I can do it with my family and support local.
Is it tough to be a business owner these days, Leah?
I think it definitely can be.
Mm-hmm.
The markets are always changing. Now money can be tight, so it can also be big with how people are trying to attain their nutrition goals. I think the best part about this is that it does just go into anything you're eating on a regular basis. You're not changing your diet. It's basically adding to anything that you're already eating. So, burgers, wraps, eggs, anything that you're kind of already eating, it's a great complement.
And so have also like a taste to it, or is it tasteless with I know there's some products
actually,
like that.
It does have a lot of taste. So how I do them, I do several different seed blends. Okay. And essentially with that comes a lot of variety of flavors. So I have several different kinds I have on my website, and they can be found there. They're delivered right to your home, but essentially they have a different variety of flavors. So some can be more spicy, some can be more healthy, some can be peppery. They do have a variety of flavor. It's quite good.
Really interesting. I'm learning a lot from you today. What advice would you have for somebody that maybe wants to try this for the first time?
So I have a website. I do home delivery every Sunday. We basically serve to the greater Ottawa area, and it is sold live. They are 6x8 compostable trays and a compostable bag delivered right to your door. There is a subscription that we do offer. And the difference between us and some other microgreens is that the health benefits are still intact and they're still growing as they're sold live. So you can harvest as you wish. They will grow up to 2 weeks on your countertop. You just give them a little bit of water. So that's an added benefit, I think, is that you're not power eating them. You can actually eat them with any meal at any time. So it's a convenience. we support local to any residents and commercial. And this is also year round. So I do this through the winter as well. So it can be something that you want to try now or another time. But in the wintertime, it's kind of nice. You're supporting local. You're also eating healthy, and it has a lot of value with the health benefits. There was actually a study recently with being able to see how broccoli is a benefit, and it has anywhere from 20 to 100 times more nutrients in it than it does in its mature state.
Wow. Wow, it's amazing, Lee. I really did learn a lot today, and I'm hoping that you do well with your business and, the opportunity to sort of promote some of the small businesses that make up this community is all part of our business lunch today. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Leah Grassi joining us. She's the owner of Valley Microgreen, and I did learn a lot there. That was fascinating. We know that we are certainly learning a lot at the Emergency Act inquiry. Mayor Watson is still testifying. Lots of interesting comments coming out of this. Lots of frustration on behalf of the mayor, and our very own Jason White is joining me now. I know, Jason, we've been glued to this testimony over the last number of days. What are you hearing today?
Well, the lawyer for the convoy just wrapped up his questioning of the mayor. And interesting you say frustration by the mayor. I think by the end of that round, there might have been more frustration on the part of the convoy lawyer. Not a criticism, but an observation of our mayor. When there are questions that he doesn't really want to answer, or he doesn't like that you've asked him about that, he will get very detail oriented. And this is a thing that I noticed in the questioning. The lawyer had asked a question, okay, so you were the member of provincial parliament, he says. And Watson, no, that I did this job and then I was the city councillor. Okay, but then you became an MPP. No, I became the mayor after that. Okay, but then you became an MPP. No, I was the president of the Canadian Tourism, and on it went. And so this is a technique that I've seen Watson use before. I've been on the receiving end of it, and he employed it here today, being very detail-oriented, as you want to be when you're a witness at an inquiry or in a court case or stuff like that. But that was definitely a recurring theme through the questioning from the convoy lawyer, and now former police chief Slowly's lawyer has begun questioning the mayor.
It certainly is interesting to see all of the people that are participating in this, and we have still, upwards, I think maybe another 58 people that are going to be part of this. Jason, it's going to roll out over a number of weeks, but we know this report has to be done by February. I mean, there's not a lot of time here.
No, and a lot of witnesses, and they're maybe getting through, 2 a day at this point. A friend of mine was joking the other night, like they might get through everybody by Christmas, if that. Right. Because as you say, there's so many witnesses, and each of the lawyers and everyone who is standing at this inquiry, they're going through and they're taking their time. So, yeah, a lot of road left to cover yet. We're only just hearing from the mayor, and there's still a lot of people left.
For sure. And I know certainly many people are looking forward to the testimony and hearing from the Prime Minister. I mean, this is, putting him in terms of this inquiry on the stand, if you will. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but certainly putting him in front of all of the people that will be asking the questions. This is something that Canadians are definitely looking forward to.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of names on this list that, you and I live and breathe this stuff, Sam, so we know who these people are, but your average person, might not be as familiar with who this person is and their role in it. So, but I think the Prime Minister absolutely, like top three, that's, who people are going to be interested in hearing from and want to know what he has to say at this inquiry. But then, of course, the Premier is not on this list. Right. And we heard from an expert on Wake Up this morning, Michael Kempa at the University of Ottawa, raising, some pointed questions about perhaps the Premier should be on this list. So, we're hearing from the mayor, we're hearing from the city manager, we'll hear from Diane Deans, who was the head of the Police Services Board, all of these people, but we're not hearing from Premier Doug Ford. He has not been called to testify. It
certainly is interesting. Let's just put it that way. Jason White, really appreciate your time today, and we appreciate you listening, of course, to City News. And as you know, we've had some changes, some exciting changes here. You'll be able to wake up with Rob Snow from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And David Smith, host and producer, takes you through from 9 to 10 with the Talk Back Hour. You still have your say. And I'm joining you every day, every weekday, of course, between 10 and 1. and then our news team going to take you through the afternoon. And of course, there is lots of news today. You won't want to go anywhere. Lock it in to City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.